Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. My. The Queen has a lot to discuss during this live stream, so please bear with me. I have about 11 or more updates, breaking news to bring to you because it's easier to just put it all in one video. So if you have a little bit of time to spare this evening, sit back, relax, and enjoy the content. Comment below the video. Please go to my community board to give your commentary on the polls and breaking news. This will probably be a very lengthy live. I had to build up the strength just to bring all this information, but I have so many updates. We're going to talk about the Menendez brothers. I'm going to talk about them last because it's a very winded commentary pertaining to Rosie O'Donnell's interview with one of the brothers. Court TV has brought forward information during a segment. We're going to chop that up. We're going to talk about Keefe D and Mr. Brooks Houck. Both of these gentlemen have attended court in the past 24 hours. We're going to discuss their court appearances. We're also going to discuss Tupac's brother, the doctor who has something to say. Suge Knight has something to say. He wants to be released from prison. Kenneka Jenkins' mom has settled a lawsuit with the hotel and the people who ran a restaurant out of the hotel. The freezer where the young lady was found several years ago. We're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to just briefly run through the latest updates and stories that I've already brought to you on this network. If you'd like to donate to this great network, this platform, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats, and welcome during the live stream. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started with Miss Charlotte Center. I'm not covering this story, but I will bring you updates pertaining to the case. The suspect, Craig Nelson Ross Jr., was arrested after authorities said his fingerprints match one found on a ransom note. The suspect arrested in connection with the disappearance of Charlotte Center has been charged with first-degree kidnapping. Additional charges are anticipated, according to a news release from the New York State Police. Craig Nelson Ross Jr., 47, was taken into custody Monday evening, 6:30 p.m. The press release states New York Governor Kathy Hochul said at a Monday night press conference that his fingerprints matched one found on a ransom note that he allegedly sent. Charlotte 9 went missing Saturday evening while riding her bike near Monroe Lake State Park in Gastonville, New York. She was found alive Monday night, New York State Police said, one day after police put out an Amber Alert. She is in good hands. She appeared to be outwardly physically unharmed at the time, Hochul said, adding that Charlotte had been transported to the hospital. The Times Jr. reported that Ross was arraigned at 3:40 a.m. and is being held in the Saratoga County Jail without bail. Craig Ross Jr., Caucasian male, is in the Saratoga County Jail. And when you look at his mugshot, looks like he's got blood in his hair on the left-hand side of his scalp. So did he have an incident? Because I believe he gave them a little bit of maybe a little bit of scuffling, not wanting to be apprehended. But what I really want to discuss is this other story that's coming in pertaining to this family that I'm not pleased with. Everyone's entitled to his or her opinion, and this is my opinion, what I'm about to read you. The aunt has set up a GoFundMe page. It has already raised more than $20,000 in less than one day. This is uploaded October 3rd. The family of Charlotte Center has started a GoFundMe to help with expenses during a difficult time in the wake of her alleged kidnapping and subsequent rescue. The fundraiser was started by Charlotte's aunt, Jeannie Luciana Center, who wrote that the funds will go straight to the 9-year-old girl's parents while they transition back into some sense of normalcy. And naturally, it's just recapping that she went missing last Saturday, found 2 days later, reunited with her family. The GoFundMe has raised over $20,000 in less than a day. People Magazine is the source. Why do you all need a GoFundMe page? Please explain to me. I could see a GoFundMe page if this was a winded search. We were going into weeks, months. The parents were distraught. They couldn't go to work. They had several children to feed, house note, because everybody's got something to pay, Everybody's got some form of bills to pay in order to live. But let's just say, for example, they had a lot of children. They were too distraught to work. Somebody had a nervous breakdown. Then I could see a GoFundMe page. But she was only missing a few days, found Monday. Suspect apprehended, is in the jail. Why do you all need a GoFundMe? $20,000 plus has been given by the general public. Now, I would assume people gave this money because it was a breaking story, a national story. People were glad the young girl was found, happy to give money. But that's the whole point of the story. She was found quickly by the grace of God. Grace of God, he didn't unalive the young lady, young girl. So that's a miracle in itself that she's alive, because a lot of children and adults who go missing, they're usually discarded, or let's say unalive, after 3 hours. Well, they didn't mention the child. It said parents, straight to the parents. And that was something else I was going to mention. If indeed they don't have health insurance and the little girl needs extensive counseling, I could see paying for counseling. Get her therapy. But I'm just not in agreement with the money. That's why I asked the question the other day: who's the person that took her? What's his relation to the victim, the victim's family? Did he live near these people? Had he watched the child, the family? Any type of personal vendetta? I asked all the questions, but I'm not in agreement with the money. And that's just my personal opinion. Because a lot of times things get real itchy when people start donating money. We start hearing other little crazy nonsense. He said, she said, gossip. Some of it is sometimes true, the things that start coming out. And then people start talking crazy, wanting their money back. This is why I said they didn't need the money. Because one, we don't know their financial state. We don't know how much money they're worth. We do not know what type of jobs they have. I don't know what kind of house they have. So this is why I said she was only gone 2 days. What? 3 nights. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. If I'm repeating that correctly. So let me go back in. Let's see. Yeah, she went missing Saturday evening, riding her bike. Found 2 days later. So what is the purpose of a GoFundMe? You haven't missed that much work if you work weekends. And when you say normalcy, how would $20,000 plus or more help with normalcy? Just asking. That's one of my updates. Thank you for joining me. I'm just running down the list. I brought you information pertaining to an African-American girl, 14, and another younger toddler girl missing from Baltimore. They are still missing. This was uploaded on the 3rd of this month. An alert was issued by the Baltimore Police Department as they seek the public's assistance in tracking down a pair of children who were reported missing by concerned friends' family over the weekend. According to the police, 14-year-old Telia Webb and 1-year-old Nakia Green have not been seen since October 1st, which was Sunday, in the 700 block West Lafayette Avenue. The child was last seen wearing black shorts, white onesie with black and white Adidas sneakers. The teen has orange hair, orange and black braids, and was last seen sporting black ripped jeans, black shirt with white lettering, black and gray jean jacket, and Jordans. It is unclear where they may be traveling. If you have information pertaining to the disappearance of these 2 children, 410-396-2477, and you can address your concerns, complaints, information to the Baltimore Western District. Daily Voice is the source of this information. Where are these children? Who has them? Did the little girl leave with the 1-year-old? Did the little girl hurt the 1-year-old? What happened? Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. What happened to these 2 kids? Great description of what they had on, but do they still have those clothes on? Are they alive? What's the 411 pertaining to these 2 kids? That's a very odd age group of children to be missing. a 14-year-old girl and a 1-year-old toddler. Very strange. My next update is pertaining to a South Haven woman from Memphis, Tennessee, who has been missing, and sadly, she was found deceased. Here's the update. Thank you for joining me. Very sad information. Prayers to the family. I do not know what's going on, but she has been found.
Missing South Haven woman, Bonita Adams.
A few hours ago, South Haven and Memphis police confirming they actually found the 36-year-old's remains the day after she was reported missing on September 13th. Our Stephen Pempo is here with us now. And Stephen, what took so long to get word to her family?
Pepper, Richard, South Haven police says they actually found that body just one day after she went missing, but they only now just identified that body found in Memphis's Castalia Heights neighborhood, Memphis police tell ABC 24 they were called to Castalia and East Person September 14th at around 11:30 at night. That was about someone stuck on the train tracks. MPD says they found Adams dead on the tracks, and investigators do not suspect foul play. According to South Haven authorities, Adams was last seen at the Raceway gas station at 580 State Line Road in South Haven, where she called her mother, saying she was leaving Baptist DeSoto Hospital. South Haven police said they didn't receive any calls about Bonita Adams' disappearance until last Tuesday, September 26th. Now, we have reached out to Bonita Adams' family, but have not heard back from them at this time.
Okay. So, are they alluding to the fact that she killed herself, that she unalived herself? This young lady, I was speaking to a person who's from the Memphis area today. They live here in East Tennessee. And this male was saying, who's to say if she wasn't put there? Well, what you have to ask yourself is the obvious. They haven't discussed the shape of her body, which if we're to believe that she threw herself on the train tracks, she would not be in a dignified manner. So one would conclude possibly she wasn't unalived by another human being, but by the force of the train. And naturally, a train going so fast, it cannot just stop. The fact they use the word stuck on the tracks, well, she was probably a little more than stuck on the tracks. I can't imagine anyone having to go to that crime scene to see a human on the tracks. They found her a day later after she went missing, but she wasn't reported missing for a little while. So what was going on in this lady's life? There's also information that she had left the hospital. So what was she going to the hospital for? Was she seeing a doctor for any type of mental disorders, problems, health-related problems? Did she get bad news about her health? Did she indeed kill herself? So I'd like to hear the shape of the body, because that's the only way I can conclude if indeed it wasn't foul play and it was just she took her own life. If she took her own life, it is sad, because why would a 36-year-old woman want to kill herself? Times are very rough right now for many Americans. A lot of people needing a place to live. A lot of people are homeless. A lot of people are destitute. And that's another live stream I want to bring to you pertaining to the migrants coming here and cities starting to find homeless people for sleeping on the streets. A lot of people who have probably never been homeless are going to be faced with homelessness if they don't have friends and family that can take them in or find viable housing. And many people are having to possibly move out of the places, the jurisdiction where they live, and move to another town because they can't find anywhere to live. That's going to be a problem, because then that means you've got to track working. How far is it for you to drive? Do you have a viable car that can drive an hour or more? And who wants to drive an hour or more to work? When you start pushing 40 minutes, that's too much driving to and from. Then you got to count traffic in the morning, in the evenings, if you are working morning shift, afternoon shift, second shift. It's bad out here. And I keep bumping into people every day that need a place to live because somebody is selling a house that they were renting, or somebody's selling a building that they were living in, or somebody's selling, the apartment complex or duplex or whatever it is. Now they've got to go out here and try to find a place that's going to be just as expensive as where they just got released from. It's a dilemma. And we have all these people moving here to East Tennessee, West Tennessee, from California, Arizona, out west. These people already have their money, their, savings, so they can afford to come here and buy a property for cheap. And the people here cannot. Most people here cannot afford to buy a house. They don't have the money to buy a house. They don't have the credit. And it's depressing. Well, that's my update pertaining to Miss Benita. Prayers to the family. Thank you for joining me. Chicago Bears legend, NFL Hall of Famer Dick Butkus has passed away at the age of 80. He passed away in his sleep. Very sad news. Allegedly, he was okay a few weeks ago. His reporter spoke to his son, but sadly, Mr. Butkus has passed away. And an actor by the name of Keefe Jefferson, African-American male, who was in Django Unchained, has passed away at the age of 53. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he has lost his fight to cancer. Keefe Jefferson passed away at the age of 53. Thank you for joining me. Bringing you all sad news updates. Suge Knight is my next update. A lot of talk pertaining to Tupac and the theories of how he came to be unalive. You entitled to your opinion or who you think did it, why. I only focus on what evidence is brought forward. And it's 27 years late. And then some people, or one person has said, the strip would have been busy if indeed that's where he was when he got shot. Nobody saw anything, heard anything. 27 years is a long time for a person to walk free. People, rather, because there was more than one person allegedly in the car. And allegedly those others are no longer alive, except for Keefe D, Mr. Davis. Let's hear what Mr. Suge Knight has to say. Suge Knight hopes to be released from prison, citing alleged legal shortcomings in his trial during an interview with Chuck Creekmur of All Hip Hop. The 58-year-old explained why he should be allowed to walk free, at least temporarily, claiming his rights were violated during his 2015 hit-and-run case. According to the report, Knight believes he incorrectly had 3 strikes on his record when he accepted the plea deal in 2018. Additionally, Knight claims a judge did not allow him to represent himself after he fired his attorneys. So, an unfixable error. The only thing you got to do is you got to make a deal and let me go home, or show I was right, or you let me take my plea back and start all over, explained the former CEO of Death Row Records. But it'd be harder to start all over because you did all this BS with my case. He continued to elaborate. This is my bed. If they allowed me to go to trial, I would have won my case. I would have beat my case, but they didn't. Okay, I understand that, right? My crime carries 2, 6, 11 years if I was guilty. Naturally, they're going to give me the high term, right? So my past, who I am, definitely is going to make sure I get some time. I'm fine with that, but you don't have the right to double me up. Suge Knight, legal name, Marion Knight, pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter in 2018 and was sentenced to 28 years behind bars for the death of Terry Carter. In 2015, Knight struck and killed Carter with his truck during the production of the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton, following an argument with Cleavon Sloan. Knight's legal team attempted to argue that their client was acting in self-defense. You don't have the right to give me the time and a half. You don't have the right to not let me have a lawyer, shared Knight with All Hip Hop. So I wasn't pushing the envelope as hard at first because I know I got to do some time, but I've been gone for 9 years, so I did my time already. Vibe is the source. Well, Marion, who's to say that you've done your time? Hello, Sammy P. That's your opinion, that you have served enough time for killing a man. You have always had altercations with others. From what we have heard about you, you have been a bully most of your adult life, hanging a Mr. Vanilla Ice over a balcony to get the rights to a Ice Ice Baby song. Was that not true? So I'm supposed to believe you are not the same type of person that would run a person over in your car? One person in the comment section said, well, sir, you're seen on camera running the man over. And I guess they mean that it didn't seem like you were trying to stop yourself. jump out screaming, "Oh my goodness, I've hit somebody." So you admit you deserve time, but you feel like, well, I've done 9, that's enough. Then you talk about representation. They didn't let you represent yourself. You went ahead and gave a plea when it was miscorrected how many strikes you had on your record. Well, sir, if you've been in trouble with the law, you should know how many strikes you already had. If you're knowledgeable. And allegedly, you've had a record company, so you should be smart in some areas of counting. Now, all of a sudden, Keefe D goes to prison, to jail. Here you come with commentary, "I want to get out." How ironic. The timing is too perfect. Keefe D is arrested for murder of your protege, and now all of a sudden, or let's just say somebody that worked for you. I don't want to say Tupac with your protege, but nonetheless, now you want out. Are you afraid to be incarcerated, sir? Are you in general population, sir? Marion, cut the BS. Just stop it. You know the law. You've dealt with the law, the court systems, I'm sure, a few times. You could have asked to represent yourself. My understanding in this article, you fired your attorney, so what are you crying about now? Just BS. Nonstop BS with you. Suge Knight is a joke. And I hear that Mr. Tyrese's sister, Shantae, has passed away. Prayers to his family. Ooh, a lot of updates. Let's talk about Mr. Michael Orr. Then we'll get back to the Tupac and Keefe D information. This is an author who wrote the book, 2006, The Blind Side, Evolution of a Game, adapted into an Oscar-nominated film in 2009, and is based on Orr's life with the Tuohys. Michael Lewis, the author behind the Blind Side book that inspired the Oscar-winning film, is shedding light on what he believes sparked Michael Orr's lawsuit against the Tuohy family. What we're watching is a change of behavior, he told The Guardian. He said the Orr of today is different, in his opinion, than the person he got to know while writing the 2006 book, The Blind Side, Evolution of a Game, which is based on the Tuohy family taking in Mr. Orr as a teen, when he was a teen. The book was adapted in 2009 into a 2009 film starring Quentin Aaron and Orr alongside Sandra Bullock, Tim McGraw, Lily Collins, and Kathy Bates. This is what happens to football players who get hit in the head. They run into problems with violence and aggression, Lewis continued in the interview published on Tuesday. It appears Lewis is referencing a condition called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, known as CTE. According to the Alzheimer's Association, it's a progressive and fatal brain disease associated with repeated traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, including concussions, repeated blows to the head. Lewis alleged or possibly believed others would get behind him if he makes these accusations. The author stood by Sean and Leanne Tuohy, challenging Orr's claims in the lawsuit that they made millions from the Blind Side film while he got nothing. Lewis said they received 6 figures at best. However, the author admitted that the couple's daughter is married to one of the film's investors. How convenient. Messenger.com. See, that's new information. Never heard that before. Some of you may say, why is he saying anything now about the money? Why didn't he say anything before? I don't know. Maybe he didn't feel like he needed it then. Maybe he didn't feel like he needed to say anything about it then. But that's the whole point. What you would do and I would do are 2 different things. All this came about allegedly because he found out he wasn't adopted. He found documents that he signed were not actual adoption papers. So maybe this is when he decided, I'll just go ahead and tell everybody how I feel. As far as this author giving his opinion of Mr. Tuohy and violence and this brain disorder, first of all, we don't have any proof that Mr. Orr suffers from this brain disorder, number one. So for you to put him in that category is disrespectful. Just because a person decides to speak on something that they never spoke on doesn't mean they're suffering from a brain disorder. I haven't heard that he's had any run-ins with the law or any violent tendencies or assaults. So that's disrespectful, as I said, to even say, oh, well, a lot of these athletes have this disorder and he's different than when I talked to him years before when writing the book and blah, blah, blah. He's only different because, as I just said, he's speaking about something that was private and that they thought was private and nobody was going to hear about it. And you're defending them because you were in cahoots with them writing the book. And once again, in this article, you still hear the same information. Mr. or was not paid. And maybe he didn't want the money then. I don't know. I wasn't there. But don't say the man is violent, suffering from a brain disorder when you don't have proof. And if you don't have any allegations on file, if there are no allegations on file that he's a violent person, you have no right to even categorize him as a violent person. Because so far I haven't heard anything about him being a violent person or suffering from this football disease, CTE. That's a low blow. And as the son has said, the Tuohy's son, oh, I knew this day was coming. So that should tell you something right there, that everybody knew he was never adopted and that they had him sign that agreement, that conservatorship. And if you Google what conservatorship is, it states plainly. It is for somebody to take over a person's estate, financial matters, if they are deemed mental or physically incapacitated. And the judge is the only person that will give the rendering for the document. So they obviously had to take in something to court, or, excuse me, they didn't take it to court, I don't believe. They just drew up the papers and he foolishly signed them thinking they were adoption papers. Let me make that clear. Because that's the whole point of that. If this was legally bounded in a courtroom, they would have had to bring proof that he was not able to take care of himself. And naturally, he would have had to appear in court. And that's when all hell definitely would have broken loose, because I'm sure he would have spoken up for himself saying, I don't need a conservatorship. I can manage my own finances and whatever. And that's basically what the conservatorship is. I believe these people saw money, saw dollar signs with this guy and his talent. And that's what made them draw up these papers. And for this author to act like without the Tuohys, he would have never made it to college ball or pro, it's very disrespectful once again. So now you're saying what? They were out there on the field while he was playing football in college and the NFL. Those Tuohys didn't do anything that perfected his talent. He perfected that on his own. Whether he was slow, mildly slow, had a 6th grade education or whatever, that's nothing to do with what he can do on the field. Because there are a lot of athletes that we know are not scholastically inclined, but they are talented physically. So that's a talent nobody can orchestrate or navigate or manipulate, shall I say. So to even say that, what, they made him. Without them, he wouldn't have made it as far in life. That's a low blow. That's a very low blow. And as I had said before, this business with the NCAA, them needing to sign these papers, I don't even know what the NCAA bullshit has to do with them needing this conservatorship, and what does a conservatorship have to do with the NCAA for him to legally qualify? I don't understand none of that. It's all bullshit anyway, because if a person will have you sign a document under the guise of something else, then that means they're not being genuine with you. So anybody that wants to defend them, that's your prerogative, but I'm not defending the Tuohys. Because they started off on a lie. So I don't understand why people want to sweep that under the rug like that's no big deal. It is a big deal. Because he didn't have anything for them to be a conservatorship over. He was just 18 years old. So he didn't have anything. He didn't have any money. He didn't have a pro contract with anybody. He was just 18. So you want to be a conservatorship over what? His business deals. Exactly. That means you saw dollar signs. Point blank. So, author, Mr. Lewis, you're out of line, out of pocket. And you're speaking ill of this man as if you know him personally. And to say that he's not the same person that he was back then, well, he grew up. Hello. He's an adult now, 37. How is he supposed to be the same person from late teens to almost a 40-year-old man? Are you serious? Wow. Just bold. Oh, Lordy me. Kenneka Jenkins. Thank you all for joining me. Associated Press is the source, everybody. The mother of a 19-year-old Chicago woman who was found dead in 2017 in a freezer at a suburban hotel where she had attended a party has reached a settlement in her lawsuit against the hotel and others. The settlement was reached in August. Cook County court records show, but it has not been entered in the court docket because attorneys for Kenneka Jenkins' mother have asked the terms be sealed from the public, Chicago Tribune reported. A judge denied that request Tuesday, but asked the mother's attorney to resubmit the request. A status hearing is scheduled for next week in the case, which had been set for a trial starting October 16th. Attorneys for Jenkins' mother, Teresa Martin, argued that the family's safety, privacy, trumped any reason to require that the records be publicly filed. The widespread of publicity of this case, including uncontrolled speculation, social media commentary, has resulted in various threats made against various individuals in the case, including Martin, witnesses, and the defendants. So now we hear the word defendants, witnesses. So is there an upcoming trial this month? Will we hear that they have decided to bring forward charges against people who were there with her or proof that somebody hurt her, harmed her, or put her in that freezer? Very interesting information. An attorney for Martin wrote in an unopposed motion to seal the settlement's terms. The lawsuit was filed December 2018 against Crown Plaza Hotel in Rosemont, its security company, and a restaurant that rented the walk-in freezer in which Jenkins was found dead. It alleged the defendants were negligent because they didn't secure the freezer or conduct a proper search following Jenkins' disappearance. The suit initially sought more than $50 million in damages. Jenkins was found dead inside the freezer on September 10th. 2017, nearly 24 hours after she disappeared from a ninth floor room at the Crown Plaza, where she had attended a party with as many as 30 other people. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office found that she died from hypothermia and ruled her death an accident. Alcohol intoxication and the use of a drug for treating epilepsy and migraines were significant contributing factors in her death, the office said. Surveillance videos released by police days later showed Jenkins wandering alone through a kitchen area near the freezer not long after she disappeared. What is the truth? Accidents, meds, alcohol hindered her reasoning. So what you have to ask yourself, did she have behavior conducive to that night of allegedly wandering around? Did she normally take meds and drink and other drugs, and it would hinder her, incapacitated to where she couldn't make sound decisions, such as wandering around, not in her right frame of mind? Has she done this before? If you want to believe that. How much is the settlement? The mother doesn't want to release the amount for privacy issues. The judge ruled against it, but we'll be having another hearing pertaining to the matter. It sounds like there will be a trial coming up because you hear witnesses and defendants mentioned in this commentary. Has the state decided to file charges against people who were there at the hotel? That means partygoers, regular people walking through the hotel, and or staff members. How did she end up in the freezer? And as I said, has she ever exhibited behavior that would constitute her to wander into the freezer and not be aware of her faculties? Epilepsy medicine means she was an epileptic. So we already know that you cannot drink alcohol on epileptic medicine. That's a no-brainer. Was she epileptic? I would say that she was. Because why would you be taking it unless you were taking some type of medicine that treats epilepsy and migraines? Because some medicines are dual, triple purposes. Very interesting information. trial. Who are the defendants? Who are the witnesses? This should be a very interesting case because many people believe there was foul play on that fateful night of her wandering around the hotel. Maybe she had too much to drink and it was mixing in whatever type of medicine she was taking, and it rendered her incapacitated to where she didn't know what she was doing. I would hope that she would know to not enter into a cold freezer and shut the door behind herself. That just makes no sense to me. But I don't know her personally, didn't know her personally. So what I think is just that, my opinion. And when you don't know a person, you can't really say what they would and would not do. You can just say it doesn't sound right to you. Something's odd. So that's why I asked, did she have this type of behavior before? Wandering around, incapacitated, mixing alcohol, meds. Has she done this before? Settlement reached between the hotel and the mother and other entities. Thank you for joining me. This is an all-around live stream pertaining to breaking news, bringing you all the updates because I've been behind for the past couple of days and I want to make sure I get everything out to the general public. A lot of people have something to say about Keefe D. I want to hurry up and get this subject out of the way. First court appearance for Mr. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, arrested and charged in the killing of Tupac Shakur. He's limping in the courtroom. Is it because he had on shackles or there's something wrong with his leg, foot, ankle, back?
Present in custody. Mr. DiGiacomo and Mr. Palolo are here on behalf of the state. Mr. Davis served you in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
We will continue to ask for a no bail setting because we believe under Nevada law and the evidence in this case, if the proof is evident and the presumption is great, that he will be convicted of first-degree murder, and that allows us to ask for a no bail setting. Well, he's no different than any other defendant. I mean, we had a feeling this day was coming in the recent history based upon some of the events that have occurred in the last few years and few months. I like to see the person in person because on these cases, it's usually me that makes the ultimate decision on how to proceed. So I like to look at a person who's being charged with a crime in such a high-profile case. I like to look at their mannerisms. I like to look at their demeanor. I like to listen to them and kind of get a feel for their attitude. Well, it's a cold case. It's been lingering for 27 years, but I felt there was sufficient legally admissible evidence to move forward. That's why we presented it to a grand jury. The grand jury agreed that there was probable cause to return an indictment. But this case is like no other case. In a court of law, we have to present sufficient legal evidence to hopefully prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Any case that's 27 years old sometimes presents some challenges, but we feel very confident that the criminal justice system will work in this case.
Yeah, I feel like it is a continuance of this new period where there appears to be some accountability.
Tupac's brother.
There really wasn't there wasn't no surprises. I thought they might mention what they were going to do about bond, but yeah, this is going to be a long process. We're going to see what's going to happen. It's really at the beginning, and I'm just braced for whatever's next. Correct. I feel law enforcement hasn't cared for a long time, and we are young black men. This whole case is young black men. So young black men often deal with delayed justice because we are often viewed as the criminals. So justice has been delayed for quite some time in spite of all the eyes, all the attention, despite the celebrity of my brother. brother, despite the, the city where it happened, where a lot of pedestrians are walking all the time, a lot of security, a lot of high rollers, a lot of wealthy people are there. So it's hard to believe that there's not more security information on the case. Well, it sucks. The whole affair sucks. The fact that this indictment came down is a little hope, but we want justice for Bob. And that's the long and short of it. I'm just waiting to see what happens. Like I said, everything is curious. You got all types of police departments, law enforcement, the feds were involved in a portion of it. Let's see how it all turns out.
Time, Mr. Source. Thank you for joining me. So that is Mo Preem, Tupac's brother. And he's surprised that there was no mention of a bail that will probably come here shortly. He feels like the police hadn't cared for a long time. Justice was delayed. Justice has been delayed for Black men. Most Black men are viewed as criminals. He's also curious about the security of the case. I don't know what that means exactly. He also says that it sucks and that they want justice for Pac. Well, I agree with most of what he has said. This is a very strange case. 27 years is a long time to have knowledge of people in a car shooting at men, rather, because Mr. Suge Knight was in that same car, and only one ends up dying. And it took you 27 years when one of the people who was in the car of the shooting has been talking publicly, wrote a book, been interviewed by said sources, and you're just now arresting him. And then he's the last person alive, allegedly, of the people who were in the car. And as I've asked before, how many people were actually in the car? Was Keefe D just the shooter or the person that handed somebody the gun? Suge Knight is saying that he doesn't believe Keefe D is the shooter. No, he says, I don't believe Orlando is the shooter, which is the nephew who is no longer alive, killed in another incident, street incident. So is Suge Knight trying to say that Keefe D is the shooter or somebody else? Big Dre was mentioned by somebody else, I believe, in a grand jury indictment. What happened to that? What happened to that indictment? Because in order for you to bring somebody forward an indictment, you had, or brought witnesses for an indictment, you had to have gotten information pertaining to a shooter or shooters. So what happened with that indictment? So is Suge trying to say Keefe D is one of the shooters, or this Big Dre is the shooters, or they were the only two in the car? Who was he referencing? Let him tell it. I'm not a snitch. I ain't telling nothing. It ain't my job to tell nothing. But you've already said you don't believe Orlando did it. You said, I don't have a problem with him. He's not the problem. He ain't the one that shot Pop. But yet you don't want to tell who shot Pop. See, all this he said, she said stuff is depressing. And the fact that he allegedly had information pertaining to Biggie Smalls' death. And most of you who follow the content, Biggie Smalls died on California soil. So what does he know about Biggie Smalls? What does he know about whatever information he gave to get the proffer plea, to wind his way out of this murder charge many moons ago? And why now bring forward the charge? I find it strange. FBI was involved and it took 27 years. So when did the FBI join the ranks of trying to solve this homicide? Maybe they didn't care. You have a rapper who sang gangster rap. He talked about the police in some of his songs. He had a no-care attitude. He was known to be cocky, arrogant. Hey, who gives a shit? But let most detectives say it doesn't matter why a person got shot. Even if some of you believe they deserved it, our job is to solve the crime. We treat all victims the same. Well, did some of these detectives treat this case the same? Because who's going to just come out and say, yeah, I don't care about them shooting that damn rapper to death? serves him right, blah, blah, blah. Who's going to say that? Now, we've heard people being caught with their foot in the trap, recorded saying not so nice things about people. But I do find it baffling, 27 years. You're just now bringing forward charges against Mr. Davis when he has been talking about this for years, publicly, wrote a book. It's disrespectful. Now, you're entitled to your opinion to believe this man deserved to die because he allegedly initiated a fight in this casino. I don't know. I wasn't there. And as some guy said on the comment section of a Newsbreak article, how do you know what happened between Tupac, Suge, and this Orlando? Who's to say Orlando hadn't been doing something out in the street and they were getting revenge on him when they saw him? See, you don't know because we don't live out there. We don't know these people. We don't know what the hell these people had going on. But it's the old saying, live by the sword, you die by the sword. And common sense should tell anybody when you're singing and rapping about death, mishaps, you're claiming that. That's why you have to be careful what you talk about, what you engage in. That's for anybody. Same thing with this true crime. You talk about it enough, you should best believe you might be a victim of true crime. Because you have to be careful what you put out into the universe. You have to be careful what you're sucking in as far as information into your mind, your peripheral. And a lot of people don't think about that. Just like the company you keep, it's all the same. You hang with riffraff, you should know you're going to be in something. You'll be a witness to something. Your name will come up in something. It is inevitable, of course. That's why it's best to keep your circle very, very small. Nothing wrong with being friendly. Hello, how are you? But I don't have to hang with you, go to your house, sip tea, and crumpets with you. Keep it moving. What does Mr. Davis know about the murder of Tupac, Biggie Smalls? Why did it take so long to bring him to justice? Did his nephew shoot Tupac Shakur? Was Mr. Keefe in the car and gave the gun to Orlando or any other persons in the car? Or was it Mr. Keefe, D, and somebody else just in the car that shot at Suge Knight and Tupac on that fateful night? I doubt you'll get the truth. Because when you're dealing with street people, you really can't expect to get the 411 when allegedly they're supposed to be abiding by the snitch code. Can't be a snitch code if you're talking and giving us bits and pieces of stuff. This is what's baffling to me. This is all a bunch of buffoonery. Time is the source. Please subscribe to that network if you want to get updates to breaking news. Okay. Now, that brother just spoke here. Mo Preem is his name. Mo Preem is his name. I want to bring some more information. Who he believes is behind the murder of his brother. Just a lot of he said, she said. As I said, you're entitled to believe whatever you want pertaining to the death of Mr. Tupac Shakur. Like I said, I wasn't there. Hot New Hip Hop is the source. Tupac's brother, Mo Preem Shakur, has responded to Keefe's arrest. The theory that Diddy may have been involved in the killing of the legendary rapper. Addressing the situation on the Comedy Hype News show on Monday, Shakur admitted that it feels like his brother is being vindicated. I don't have to do anything. This individual, Keefe D, mentioned Diddy's name. Law enforcement has a job to do. Will they do it? It does feel like Pac is being vindicated because back in them days when things were going down, everybody thought he was crazy, Shakur said. He may not expressed it properly, but that don't mean he was wrong. You dig? So we'll see. He further said, I'm fortunate enough to have my freedom. I consume media. I've seen interviews. These interviews, they speak that they used to land this indictment on this dude. I've seen him and he's saying things I got questions about. Keefe D mentioned certain people that may be accomplices. So at this point in the game, somebody's accountable. Are they going to make everybody he's talking about accountable? Check out Mo Preem Shakur's full comments on the Comedy Hype News show, and it's listed below in this said video. Very, very interesting. Shakur was referencing the numerous interviews Keefe D has done about Tupac's murder during the years. He's mentioned Diddy's name in them several times. In the wake of his arrest, a video of Keefe admitting his concerns about being jailed while speaking the art of dialogue has resurfaced online. Las Vegas police finally arrested Keefe D on September 29th. He will appear in court on his arraignment, which just passed Wednesday the 4th. Be on the lookout for further updates on the case. Hot new hip hop. Let's see.
So, my favorite rapper was murdered that same year. For many, Tupac Amaru Shakur was more than just a rapper. He was the friend and the brother we wish we all had. As a young black man, they say our life expectancy compared to others is much lower, and Pac's death would remind us of that, as his life was
thank you,
short
sweetie.
at just the age of 25. 27 years later, his family finally gets closer to the answer on why the legend would lose his life. A man who prosecutors say ordered the killing of the iconic rapper was arrested and charged with murder this past Friday. The question of who killed Tupac has been one of hip-hop's long-running mysteries since the incident happened back in 1996. According to AP News, Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefe D, is one of 4 suspects. Although Davis isn't the accused gunman, he has been identified as the group's ringleader by authorities. Las Vegas officer Lieutenant Jason Johansson would say Dwayne Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime, and he orchestrated the plan that was carried out. Through interviews in his own 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, Davis admitted he provided the gun that was used. And according to authorities, it was the very admission that revived the investigation. Now, ABC News will report that Davis is the only living suspect in the homicide. Johansson would note that the charge of murder does not have a statute of limitations. I had the chance to speak with Tupac's brother, Mopreme Shakur, to try to uncover and bring closure to one of hip-hop's biggest questions and how his family plans to move forward. Joining us, we have Mr. Mopreme Shakur. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging tough, my man. You know, going with the punches.
Yeah. What's kind of been the most difficult part of this process for you?
Most difficult part is reliving the trauma, the memories, exactly what happened, and, you know, dredging through the mud. You know, we've had a long time to think about it. You dig?
Yeah. Did you kind of put it at peace in the past, kind of like you made peace with it and not expecting that someone would be directly connected to the killing of your brother?
Well, it's all a part of the stress and trauma maintenance. You know what I mean? We hadn't been getting any answers, so the family, has had to find ways to deal with it and be able to live and go on and try to live a regular life.
Yeah.
After such, you know, traumatic experiences, especially without any resolution or accountability. So some accountability is good, but, you know, we're going to see.
You know, the last time you came on our platform, we did have a person that was directly connected to it. They have now been indicted for the murder of Tupac, and that is Keefe D. You know, your reaction to seeing that it got to this point, what was your instant reaction? How did you find out about the news?
Well, I had first saw, like everybody else, the raid on Keefe D's house in Vegas, and that was a surprise to me, just like everybody else. I had no prior communication with Las Vegas law enforcement, you know. And then eventually they reached out after I did an interview on CNN. After I did the CNN interview, because people were asking about it, then Las Vegas law enforcement started reaching out to me and the family, trying to, you know, act like they were updating us on the case or whatever, but they had not done so for the past 27 years. So, you know, I'm like, you know, this guy's been out there, you know, spreading his version of the story. You know, I was assuming that Las Vegas was, you know, doing their job and trying to solve it and following up on shit. But, you know, here we are.
You know, so it's interesting because we also have, you know, there's another rapper's killing that's connected, which is Biggie. And for a long time, and even for Biggie, we still don't know who exactly did it. Do you think the fact that Pac was a black man is the reason why it took 27 years to identify a person connected or make some type of arrest at all?
I think it's the perfect storm. That part of it, us being young black men, that's there automatically, right? And then you have the special circumstances of who Pac is,
Right.
Pac was, the level of the game he was at. You know, there's a lot of variables there.
Right. Understood. Now, this isn't the first time that we're actually hearing from the family's reaction. There was a quote that went out that I believe it came from yourself, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong. It says, so why now? For us, this is not over.
Yes.
We want to know why and if there were any accomplices.
Yes.
I think that was a statement from your sister or yourself.
Yeah, I think that was me. Yeah. Who were the accomplices, if there were some, which I think they were,
right.
And the motives.
And that's where I was going to ask if you believe that there were other people involved beyond the people in the car. Is that your kind of like suspicion of like there was an ultimately hit ordered on Pac?
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have my freedom. I consume media. I consume social media a little bit. You know, I've seen interviews and these interviews that they speak of, that they used to land this indictment on this dude. I've seen him, and he's saying things in these interviews that I got questions about.
Correct.
And he mentions certain people that are, you know, maybe accomplices. And so at this point in the game, somebody's, you know, they're making someone accountable. Now, are they going to make everyone that he's talking about,
exactly,
if they're using to drop this indictment, accountable?
Okay, the person that we're hearing about it, just from this has not been proven, just for our audience, this has not been proven, but people keep mentioning Diddy's name. I saw it trending on Twitter, and Keefe D has gone on record to express that he felt that Diddy was somewhat a part of it and XYZ. You at least hearing that, how does that make you feel? And if we later find out there might be some truth to that, like, what is your takeaway from it? Just hearing that that rumor floating around.
I don't have to do anything. This individual mentioned dude's name. Okay? Law enforcement has a job to do. Will they do it? It does feel like, you know, Pac is being vindicated because, you know, back in the days when things were going down, everybody thought it was crazy. He may not have expressed it properly, but that don't mean he was wrong. It is.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Now, one thing, there was a quote that I came across. Ironically, it came from like Mr. Rogers. Remember, you ever watched Mr. Rogers as a kid growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, he's full of feel goods and full of like different wisdom. And he said there was a quote about evil, and that the one thing that evil hates, or one thing that evil does not like, is forgiveness. Have you found a place that where you forgive the men that, or women, or whoever, right, is behind the murder of your brother Tupac? Would you be able to forgive those people, and have you made, you know, where are you at with that?
Wow, that's a heavy question, brother.
Sure is. And he wants your answer.
You know, I'm a spiritual person. I try to be a righteous person, and you know, but I'm just like everybody else. And forgiveness don't come easy. You have to work for it or something, or else, you know, it's hard to forget.
You know, the irony of all of this is that the same issues or the same thing that we would see that would happen to Tupac are the same things that are continuing today in hip hop, with these young rappers being killed for different reasons. You know, what made you, when your brother passed? I saw that you continued a rap career and you were dropping songs. What made you still want to stay connected and involved with the hip hop space when it took, you know, someone that you loved away?
Hip hop was our baby. You know, we are that generation. We helped build that generation. Me, Pac, and the ones before us. So, you know, it's like we will always be part of this culture. And got to keep pushing. Our father has a saying, straight ahead. Like you said, we are straight ahead. We're going straight ahead. We're strong people. We're going to survive. Pac had already accepted the fact that, you know, he's a soldier. He was a soldier. Soldiers fight, soldiers die. He wasn't scared to die. And he always wanted to be immortal. So he is still being immortalized through my music, you know, our efforts in entertainment. He's a legend, you know.
No doubt. Now, in closing, you know, I mentioned that we still will experience the same things as in Pac's, you know, in terms of his killing. We experienced that just a few years ago when we lost Nipsey Hussle. People have compared. I actually got him on, or I had a shirt on earlier that has Nipsey on there, and people compare Nipsey and Pac in kind of, you know, in that order in terms of Nipsey being the next Pac. One thing that I noticed as a fan of Nipsey was that there was a lot of people that were giving him a lot of fake love. I would call it, right? That people that weren't really around and supporting him, kind of, you know, were saying, "Yo, I'm with Nipsey. I've been with him," and he, you know, ultimately was no longer here to really express confirmation of that. And I would imagine that the same probably happened for Pac. And in fact, you did an interview where you expressed that people said that they were at his bedside in the hospital that weren't really there. Seeing what's going on now, are you seeing any fake love kind of fester still 27 years later in terms of Pac's death?
Well, that part of it is par for the course, right? It's like, dead or alive, Pac is and was a legend. People are attracted to power. Sometimes it's innocently, most of the times there's an agenda, but that's up to us to figure out. You know, we have to distinguish the real from the fake, you know, and it is challenging. And we do make mistakes. We let suckers slip in sometimes.
That's true.
But it's par for the course.
Very
when you
true.
are someone of note. Your name rings bells. You have success. People will gravitate to that. You
Yes.
know? That's why, you know, I'm working on my memoir. My book comes out like early spring. This Thug's Life, and you know, in there you'll see is there's some of that in there because it's you know, it's still the world. You know, the world's full of good and bad. It's constant balance.
Now, there's been a few notable people.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but spoke on Nip. Shout out to Nip, his family. Nip was a good brother. You know, I was fortunate enough to do a show with him in Sweden. He was solid, and he had been down. He worked on one of my father's projects, Dare to Struggle, in the early days when he was a youngster. You know what I mean? But yeah, when he started coming up, you know, the hate comes and the love comes, and you have to distinguish.
Right. Now, as far as that relationship, have the family stayed in touch? Have you guys connected with his family? Like, has there been any of those kind of conversations?
Not that much, because we weren't in tight contact. Just recently, my man Zaid, shout out to Zaid, you know, he's connected to the family, and you know, we need to link up. We haven't yet, but there's been so much going on both sides, so much trauma, you know, and I get it. I know, I kind of feel what they're going through.
Yeah. Now, in closing, there was one person that kind of made some headlines for their reaction, and that was Jada Pinkett Smith. She would post on her Instagram page. She would say, "Now, I hope we can get some answers and have some closure." She would do RIP Pac with a dub emoji. Has Jada been around in the scenes and contact with the family? Because we don't really know these things, but where's that relationship at in terms of Pac's estate and Jada Pinkett?
Shout out to Jada and Caleb. We were pretty cool, pretty tight with the Pinkett Smiths. I talk to Jada's brother quite often. You know, we support the Smiths family. They support us. Yeah, Jada's right. Now maybe we can get some answers. And like I just showed you, you know, there's still some questions to be answered. And I guess through this process, a lot more is going to come out. Indictment comes out to the public October 9th. There'll be more information. But those interviews and his book, all that's out there. Right. So,
and this is my last question. What does the future of Pac legacy look like now that we've reached this chapter of his life?
Wow, there's always a lot going on. While we're getting through this, we're going to be, you know, trying to show the world the depth of the family and the level of commitment from the family. My father just passed on, so we're going to be doing stuff with his work and his writings. Because everybody has questions. A lot of people usually have questions about the familial relationships. You know, for a long time, people were like, I got a brother. You know, it's been a long road, but, you know, we're going to try to hold up the movement, the positivity, through all the bullshit that we were able to influence people with and by.
Yeah. I think that, you know, your family, even before Pac, has instilled a level of fearlessness that I think we as a people should constantly be reminded of when it comes to our existence here in this country and across the world. So, you know, again, like last time, Symphony, as I fill in for her in this interview, we appreciate your family and the work that you guys have done. We look forward to your future endeavors and just granting you and hoping and wishing you peace as you continue on in your journey in this lifetime. So thank you, Mr. Mopreme Shakur.
Appreciate you. We appreciate the people. We appreciate the love. You know, like my pop said, you're gonna be straight ahead with stiff resistance, and you know, we're gonna try to stand up, make our people proud.
Yeah, you guys have done that.
All right, everybody. Hot New Hip Hop is the source. Mr. Mopreme, Tupac's brother, spoke in this interview. Let's chop up what was said briefly. Justice delayed. Was justice delayed because Tupac was a black man and a rapper, controversial rapper? Accomplices. Are there more people involved that are no longer alive or other outside sources? Keefe D has alluded to Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever you want to call him. I don't know if he's just throwing that out for hype, but so what are you saying? That you all were ordered to put a hit out on Tupac just so happened the same night that your nephew had a fight with him in the casino? Sounds strange to me. Motives. What would the motive be? What would the motive be for Puff Diddy? I can see the motive of Orlando that night because he had an altercation with him. That's why I find it strange putting Puff Diddy into the mix. Because how would Puff Diddy know this guy? He doesn't hang in California. He doesn't know these people. He's not gang affiliated. So how would he know Keefe D and that entourage? So you always have to think about the obvious. Because you got to be able to touch down and talk to people to put a hit out on them, especially when you're on one coast, they're on the other. And what are the odds Tupac has a fight with this nephew of this guy, but Puff Daddy's wrapped into it? I don't know if I believe that or not. As he said, why now? Why now an indictment? What was the motive? I am curious too. He talks about Pac expressing something. Is he talking about hate? An early death? Did Tupac predict his own death? Did he think that Puff Daddy or somebody was going to put a hit out on him? Or anybody else, for that matter? This guy talked to him about forgiveness. He says it's hard, Mr. Mopreme. Yes, it is hard. And we know that they say it's best to forgive. That's for self, not for the other person. And so you don't hold hatred and beat yourself up and end up stroking out because you're holding all this anger inside of you. But it is hard to forgive, especially depending on the alleged allegation of what somebody has done to you. October 9th, we will get information pertaining to the indictment of Mr. Keefe D. And once again, will bail be discussed on October 9th? That's next week. He's penning a book, This Thug's Life. And yes, it is worse now, the rap game, because the rap game is way more grimy than what people were crying and moaning about 30, 40 years ago. The language, the violence that comes along with rappers. And I think a lot of people are being murdered as rappers. It's no different than if they were in the street hustling. People get jealous very quickly of others who have more than them. They're shining bright, whether they feel like they deserve it or not. And people become envy-hearted. Why is he making it? Why does he got this? Men hate men, women hate women. It's all the same. Why she got that? Why she living in a bigger house? Why she got a nice car? You understand what I'm saying? That's all the rap game is. It's no different than a movie star getting her house broken into. People are envy-hearted. People are jealous. People don't want you to shine. And God forbid if a rapper is affiliated, solidified, affiliated, that's a problem all in itself. Because now you're talking about rival gangs, walking amongst them. Don't mind knocking them off just to say, yep, we hit him. He's the ops, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean the rapper did anything to them particularly. Just did it because. Other accomplices. Who else is involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur? Was it just 4 men in the car that night? And is Keefe D just making up stuff about Biggie Smalls' death, murder, and Mr. P. Diddy having involvement in the crime? Is he basically saying that he was paid to put a hit out on Tupac Shakur? Who killed him? Who orchestrated it and who killed him? Police are saying Keefe D is the orchestrator, the ringleader of the group. I believe he was a heavy hitter in the street, I'm assuming, and maybe this is why the police came to this assertion. So who came to that assertion? Las Vegas Police Department or the California Police Department? I don't know. It's all nonsense because as we have learned when it comes to street violence, especially pertaining to African-American people, most of the deaths are petty as you know what. They're petty. It's always some he said and some she said and what they did. And he took this, he robbed this person, he did this, he disrespected. It's always something. And that's why there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty in the street. The street don't love nobody. It's just the devil using people to go out here and make a fool out of themselves and catch charges to end up dying in prison. That's what you're doing. You're working for the devil. You're not working for a Crip. You're not working for a Blood. You're not working for a G. You're not working for a Vice Lord. You are working for Satan. Satan is using all of you. And if you don't wake up, you are going to die by the sword, or you'll die your tail in prison. And that is not a place that any man needs to be, any woman needs to be. That's why so many people are waking up realizing, I don't want to live in here. I don't want to die in here. I want to be out here with my friends, family, live. You also hear him talking about people pretending to be there for Tupac. And this brother also said that somebody said his eyes was open. Or I think the father said that. The father who's just now passed said somebody said his eyes was open, Tupac, and he said no, they weren't. He was out of it the whole time. I don't know. I wasn't there. But a lot of people do hype up things when people are near death, dying. And it's a terrible thing to do, but people do it all the time. They'll have you dead even before you get to the morgue. Why people do such foolishness and such treachery? Because it's what I said. People are just evil. See, some people know how to hide their hate, their disdain for others. Then there's others that don't mind doing stuff overtly. They don't care. I don't care. I don't like them. I don't like her. I'm telling you about it. Oops. It is what it is. You also hear them talking about Mr. Nipsey Hussle. I really never knew much about him. I never knew anything about him at all until he died. Because I just don't keep up with every musician. But that's the point. As Mr. Mo Freeman said, sometimes you let the enemy into the fold. And that's how many people have left here or been hurt because they thought they had so-called friends, associates. But everybody's not your friend. Everybody's not wishing you well. I noticed that when I watched a lot of the rap videos. The first thing I always say when I see a bunch of guys standing around the rapper rapping, I always say there's one in that crew that doesn't like him. That wishes he was in his spot. Wishes he had that chance, that opportunity. That 5 minutes of fame or 10 minutes of fame. Of course, nothing wrong with wanting better, wanting more. That's your right to want more. It's in the scripture. You have every right to want more. And sometimes it ain't your time to shine. And as you hear him talking about it, his brother being immortalized after death, many have been famous musicians. Elvis, Michael Jackson, more popular after death. And as Tupac once said, a coward dies 1,000 deaths. A soldier dies but one. That is true. And that's what you're hearing with Keefe D. Just a nobody who's possibly making up stuff because he can. See, that's what people don't understand about getting a person's attention. Just because I'm telling you this doesn't mean it's true. That's why I keep telling you everything's about perception. What you see, I don't see. What you hear, I don't hear. And right now, I don't hear anything pertaining to Keefe D or Suge Knight. Just a bunch of white noise. Because people will tell you anything to get what they want. And if these two want to consider themselves street men and abiding by the snitch code, they have already violated by talking. One, Dwayne knew he was never supposed to say anything about what happened that night, who was in the car, who wasn't in the car. Suge Knight, same thing. You're not supposed to say who you saw and didn't see. So you two are not abiding by this alleged snitch code. That's why I keep trying to tell you there's no loyalty and there's no such damn thing as abiding by the snitch code. They've already violated. Because they're never supposed to speak of it ever. Puff Diddy name keeps coming up. Is he involved in some way or other? Did he ever make contact with Keefe D and the entourage on that night or beforehand? That's my said commentary. All right. I'm going to bring you some local news affecting my area pertaining to a case close to me. I'm going to bring you an update pertaining to 2 cases that I have shared on my network. I want to thank all of you so much for joining me. This is a Winded Live, me bringing you said information. And then we also got some other information. Oh, it just goes on and on. Everybody want to talk now about Tupac. It's starting to really bother me because it's just everybody. Biggie and Tupac director admits Doc got Tupac's murder wrong. So let's hear what this person has to say. For over a decade, Keefe D had confessed that he ordered the murder, was in the car that pulled up next to the BMW carrying Tupac, and that his nephew, Orlando Anderson, a fellow Crip who got into a scrap with Tupac hours earlier at the MGM Grand Hotel, had fired the fatal shots to kill Tupac in retaliation. This rationale was first publicized in reporter Chuck Phillips' 2-part LA Times investigation, Who Killed Tupac Shakur, and echoed by former LAPD gang Detective Greg Kading in his 2011 book, Murder Rap. Anderson was shot to death nearly 2 years later in May of 1998 at the age of 23. 2 people responsible for pushing an alternate theory that Suge Knight was the one responsible for Tupac's killing because he thought he was leaving his death row records, where the late Russell Poole, a former LAPD detective who'd been involved in the Rampart scandal and had investigated the murder of Notorious B.I.G., a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, and Nick Broomfield, an acclaimed British documentary filmmaker responsible for the 2002 film Biggie and Tupac and its follow-up 2021's Last Man Standing, Suge Knight and the Murders of Biggie and Tupac. Broomfield also told interviews that he thought Suge Knight killed Tupac. With the arrest of Keefe D, Broomfield tells Rolling Stone that he now believes the theory espoused in Biggie and Tupac is incorrect. I think that was incorrect, he says, of the Suge Knight theory of Biggie and Tupac. That was in my first film. That was Russell Poole's theory. And I believe he was incorrect. He believed that Suge Knight had ordered the murder because Tupac wanted to leave Death Row Records, which was indeed true, that he wanted to leave. Now, bring a receipt that Tupac wanted to leave, because it's easy to say that, but Tupac is dead. He's not here to tell us, yeah, I was going to leave, planned to leave. I told him I'm leaving. Well, I can say if he was leaving his record company, I can't say that he will even want to be hanging around him, because that means for some reason he will want to leave. Why would I be hanging around with you going to a casino? That makes no sense to me. But as I said, people do strange things. Okay, here we go. As he says, it was hard to believe also that Suge Knight would be sitting next to him in the murder vehicle. Exactly. There were about 20 bullets shot at the car in a typical gangland killing. I think Russell Poole was wrong about that, but he was correct about the Biggie part. Okay. Indeed, one of the hella bullets that night aimed at Tupac's grazed Knight's head, and Knight, for his part, recently told TMZ that he won't testify against Keefe D and insisted that the cops still don't have the right guy who killed Tupac. Broomfield says that Tupac made a fatal mistake by getting into it with Anderson, a trigger man for the Crips the night of his murder. Very interesting. If you're a hitman, which Orlando Anderson was for the Crips, and someone abuses you, you kind of don't have much alternative but to take revenge, explains Broomfield. And it was an unfortunate testament to Tupac's naivety and ignorance, making pretend of being a gangster that caused his death, because I think the other people knew that Orlando Anderson represented, and there was bound to be some kind of retaliation. So basically saying he was naive and ignorant. Okay. Broomfield, who was 75 and about to release the new documentary, The Stones and Brian Jones, about the life of late Rolling Stones founder, believes that it took so long to arrest Keefe D in connection with Tupac's killing because it will raise questions about the subsequent murder of Biggie Smalls, which Biggie and Tupac and a number of other investigations argued involved numerous members of the LAPD. I think the question is, why did it take them years after he confessed to Greg Kading, an LAPD officer, that he'd been in the murder vehicle and supplied the murder weapon to Orlando Anderson to charge Keefe D? Asked Broomfield. I think the reason is because once the murder of Tupac was charged and that was put to bed, the next question will be, who killed Biggie Smalls in the retaliatory killing. And that was a much more contentious murder because it points to 3 LAPD police officers, at least 2 of whom were involved in that murder and were working for Suge Knight. Very interesting. David Mack, Rafael Perez, and a guy called Amir Muhammad. He continues. Obviously, it's been extremely embarrassing for the LAPD who haven't wanted to investigate that particular murder. When Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mom, brought a lawsuit against the Los Angeles Police Department, one of the first things that happened was the LAPD was fined $1 million by a high court judge for withholding evidence. Very interesting. Never heard this. I think they've gone out of their way to make it as difficult as possible for anyone to investigate that particular murder. In 2007, Valletta Wallace, Faith Evans, Biggie's widow, and his children, Tiana Jackson, CJ Wallace, filed an amended wrongful death lawsuit against LAPD, claiming that his corrupt officers were involved in Biggie's death and that his death caused $500 million in financial losses. The suit was dismissed in 2010. No one has yet been charged in the killing of Biggie Smalls. Wow, what a read. So, are the two connected? A hit was put on Tupac, or it was just an altercation that went foul from the casino, hotel, whatever, and they found him driving down the street and shot him. Boom, in the conversation. 27 years it took to get to justice. Biggie Smalls, you was just on the wrong side of town, the wrong side of the continent, U.S. or whatever. Somebody knew you were here that didn't like you. It was a west side, east side situation, and they killed him. Was the death of Biggie Smalls retaliation for all the drama that happened to Tupac in New York when they robbed him at the studio? They shot him that time at the studio, and they thought Biggie was behind that. The rift between the two. What was the real rift between Biggie and Tupac? All the allegations of faith in him messing around, the infamous song. What was the truth? Or was it hyped up by other people? Because we have heard this in the game of life, that a lot of people will go and bank off of what somebody else said, but they don't go to the person to say, hey, what's your beef with me? Or, hey, this is my beef with you. So are we talking about 2 guys beefing over he said, she said, and never went to each other to discuss what the hell they didn't like about each other? Because I've heard this with musicians. Oh, well, I don't speak to her because they said she said this about me, but all along, nobody probably said anything. You just banked off of gossip and held a grudge on a rumor. As somebody said the other day, could these two have met up at some point in life and amended, brought the relationship back to where it was? I don't know, because both are dead. And when you have people who talk bad about each other on songs and records, I think it would be very hard to try to jump back in bed with each other as friends, associates. As we're learning that with Mr. 50 Cent, who definitely won't shut up. And lately, he's back on Puff Diddy with the parties, gay business, and it's like, give it a rest. Just give it a rest. You're too old to keep going on and on about nonsense. Like you said, if the man's gay, he like men, woo, that's his damn business. But to keep talking about it, going on and on and on, people are going to start to wonder, what's your deal? And 50 Cent has a very bad habit of interjecting himself in everybody's business and scenarios when he needs to shut up. He talks too much. And that's something I do not like, is a walkie-talkie for a man. That's my said commentary of another update pertaining to Tupac and who thinks what about this and that. Oh, God. I can't even breathe now after all this nonsense. It's just ridiculous. Just don't stop. All right. Finishing my updates. I am 1 hour and 29 minutes into this live stream with a lot of updates. Just bringing you all the stories I've covered and latest news of things that I've talked about. Here's a case locally pertaining to a Caucasian female that I once talked to and had hung around her briefly many years ago. Her name was Millie. And she was brutally murdered, she and her roommate and her daughter, by a disgusting being. Bring you that said information. Desmond Rhea has been charged in the 3 deaths of these women. And now the judge has decided to tack on an extra 37 years onto his life sentences. Thank you for joining me. It's very depressing information. Because that's the part about life. You can only do one life.
Shot and killed 3 women already. No chance of parole. After sentencing today, he's looking at another 37 years. Desmond Ray murdered his girlfriend, her mother, and her mother's friend in March of 2020. Authorities say he was strung out on meth at the time. At his trial back in April, murder convictions ensure he will never receive parole. Judge Scott Green today adding more time for other convictions in this case, including burglary. Families of the victims told that killer what he took from them can never be replaced. That inmate is appealing his case.
Well, there's nothing to appeal. You shot that girl. You shot Millie. You shot her roommate, and you shot your girlfriend, who was Millie's daughter. You killed 3 women for no reason. So appeal what? For what reason? Desmond Ray already knew he faced certain death in prison with no chance of parole, so Thursday's sentencing hearing for other crimes related to his terrible spree was largely procedural. Still, a judge decided to tack on additional 37 years onto his punishment after he shot and killed his girlfriend's mother, and his mother's friend in a drug-fueled craze in West Knoxville one night, March 2020. You are an offender who has no regard for human life, Knox County Criminal Court Judge Scott Green observed Thursday, contradicting an argument defense attorney Wade Davis had just made. In April, a Knox County jury decided Ray, 27, should serve life without parole for the killings of Millie Blackwell, Barbara Rogers, at the Truesdale Road home they all shared. He shot and killed Blackwell in her sleep and then forced his way into the nearby bedroom of a terrified Rogers and shot and killed her. Wow. Shot Millie in her sleep. Damn, that's deep. On Thursday, it fell to Green to decide how much time he should serve for a third killing, that of girlfriend Juliana White, this is Millie's daughter, on that same March 2020 night. He shot her in a rental car and tossed her out on Liberty Street before killing Blackwell and Rogers. So he just threw her out in a public street and then went back to the house on Truesdale to kill Millie and her friend, her roommate, Miss Barbara Rogers. Jurors convicted him of second-degree murder in White's killing. They also convicted him of breaking into the rooms of Blackwell and Rogers before shooting them. Knox County Deputy District Attorney General Leland Price urged the judge to impose consecutive terms of life without parole plus more time for White's murder. Green instead decided Thursday that Rhea should serve 2 life without parole terms concurrently at the same time, but he ruled Rhea should serve an additional 25 years in White's murder. He also added 12 years for Rhea's convictions on breaking into the women's rooms and using a firearm. Green noted Rhea killed Blackwell at a particularly vulnerable moment when she was asleep. He said there was no doubt Rogers endured terror in her final moments as she called 911 desperate for help, and then watched Rhea force his way into her room with a gun. Rhea declined to comment Thursday at the hearing. He's been held at the state's Bledsoe County Correctional Complex. Records show family of the victims had a chance to address Green. Betsy Martin, White's aunt, said Rhea's careless cruelty cost the lives of 3 people. His family can still see Rhea, she said. The survivors of White, Blackwell, Rogers cannot. Rogers' son, Tyler Trotter, has forgiven Rhea for what he did. He urged him Thursday to seek forgiveness from God. Trotter said he himself has gotten a second chance through Christ. You have to own what you did, Trotter told Rhea. And Trotter has made peace, which is noble of him because he once, I believe, had a drug problem. So he's been in the shoes of this thing, just hasn't murdered anyone that we know of. And he's found Christ now. So he has forgiven him for killing his mother. Well, some people probably have not forgiven Mr. Rhea because you did snuff out 3 people for no reason. And see, this is why I keep trying to tell people, and I have to tell myself this as well, you have to walk the walk. When you see that you are in the wrong company, you need to run like hell. You already know there had to have been signs that they saw that he was a drug user. He possibly was wigging out on the drugs. That means run like hell. That means he had no business living in that house with them. And if there were small children living in the house, hell to the no. You can't stay here. And I would have told my daughter that. You can live here, but your boyfriend cannot. Your boyfriend can't come here. He can't sleep here. He cannot visit here. And they later found him, what, down the street when they were looking for him. So you see, once again, somebody aiding a monster. Why would you have a drug addict in your house? Oops. Then you find out, oh, he just killed 3 people. Oops. Now imagine that. You allowed a killer to lay up in your house and he just murdered 3 white women. Now, that's something to sleep on. And as you hear this woman's final moments, Miss Rogers, all this noise going on in this house, and she hears the killer, and he's breaking into her room while she's dialing 911. That has to be a horrible, horrible situation to be in. To know this person is trying to get in your room for some reason. Why? So now we have to ask that question. Why are you killing a woman in her sleep, Miss Millie? Why were you breaking into this woman's room for what? And why did you kill the girlfriend before these 2 women? You were so spazzed out that you just went, dropped off one person, killed her, threw her in the road. Your cousin Leslie was in the car with you. He sure didn't run and go call 911 and say, hey, I'm with this dude. He just killed his girlfriend. And then he runs back to the house. Well, where was the cousin at the time when he came back to the house to kill Millie and Barbara? Just ransacking the house, going through. Probably was in there robbing them, trying to find some money so he can go buy some damn dope. But how much you want to bet? Everybody in that house knew he was an addict. So this is why Queen ain't doing no roommate situations with nobody. Hell no. Because that's the one thing people don't think about is other people's company. So now this woman that lost her life by rooming with Millie. Millie that lost her life because of her daughter's boyfriend. Do you see the chain reaction from one junkie? 3 dead people because of somebody doped up. And many people affected after the fact. Prayers to all the victims' family members. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's terrible. Lord have mercy. No rest for the weary. And we have a veteran, a young man who's in the military. He died in Alaska. He was in a exercise. It was about 17 of them inside of a vehicle that toppled over. And 2 of the military men died, and 1 was from Knoxville, Tennessee. So prayers to his family. He's a soldier. Briefly give his name. WVLT News 8 is the source of this data information. It's I can get it to pull up because I have to play it. I'm just giving all these news updates. Bear with me. I can get to my Menendez boys. And Suzanne Morphew's remains have been located. Most of you probably followed that content.
This morning after a training accident kills 2 soldiers in Alaska. Specialist Jeremy Daniel Evans died after a troop transport vehicle he was in rolled over during a training exercise. He was 23 years old. According to a statement released by the Army, 17 soldiers were inside the vehicle when it rolled on a dirt road in the Yukon training area. Officials say Evans was one of 2 soldiers that died. 12 others are hurt. The Army is investigating the cause of the crash. Trust us to continue to dig for answers on this developing story. We are waiting to hear back from Knox County Schools to see if Evans was a graduate from there.
All right. I think his name is Jeremy Evans. He's no longer alive. Rollover in outside of South Alaska. Prayers to his family. All right, everybody. Trying to bring you the latest of all the stories that I had, because I had so many, and I did not want to do a separate live for all these updates, so I'm bringing all this to you guys in one live stream. I'm trying to knock them down as quick as I can. And then we also have Mr. Ice-T. He has some things to say about Keefe D, basically saying that Keefe D is a dead man, I guess now, for running his mouth about what happened. I'm not going to go into that commentary, but just to give you that, just trying to bring you all the updates. I'm trying to find the Sheena Kyle's update, and then that will be the last of my local stories. And then we can get on to the bigger headlines. There's a guy by the name of Bupak Shakur. He died by approaching a guy thinking he was a pedophile. He lures these men online to try to catch them, to help law enforcement. And obviously he approached the wrong person and they murdered him. That's a story I wanted to bring to you. It's very interesting. They said he was fatally shot at a restaurant after accusing a suspect of being a pedophile. Very interesting information there. Very interesting. And please check out the movie I had for the week, which was Psycho Mother-in-Law, now playing on LMN Network. I just don't see my content, because I know I posted this somewhere else. Let me see. Trying to find it. Just bear with me, everybody. Well, I post so much stuff. So many articles and content. Well, because it's about a week old. Here it is. I finally found it. Last update pertaining to Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you all so much for joining me. WBIR is the source. Approaching hour number 2. A Knox County jury has already given John Bassett a life sentence with no chance for parole in the killing of his former girlfriend. On Thursday, Knox County Criminal Court Judge Scott Green tacked on another 18 years. This content was uploaded September 29th. Green said Bassett had lied to police about Kyle's whereabouts after the 2021 killing, and also lied to jurors when he took the stand in his own defense during his May trial. You are clearly a person who does not need to be out of custody ever again, the judge said. Kyle's family and friends harshly condemned Bassett for taking Kyle from them. Our family chain is broken forever, Kyle's aunt, Rita Turner, declared. Bassett shot and killed Kyle in June 2021 in her Knoxville apartment. He cleaned her place of blood and drove her wrapped corpse to a deceased family member's home on Sam Tillery Road. He hid the victim there in the crawl space. He told no one what he had done, even after Kyle's friends and family begged him to come clean. Kyle and Bassett had a stormy relationship, making him a prime suspect in her disappearance. As the community searched for Kyle, Bassett remained mum. Investigative work eventually led Knoxville police September 2021 to the home on Sam Tillery Road. And many of you who follow my content, I did a video a few months ago where I did go to the scene of the place where he buried her. It's an old dilapidated house where no one lives. I believe it belonged to his grandmother or great-grandmother. And the house has been vacant for a very long time. And I take you to that crime scene to show you the house, how abandoned and desolate the road is. It's dead ends. And I also took you to the apartment complex where she was murdered and talked to neighbors who just so happened to be living above her at the time of the murder, and they still lived in an apartment complex just in another building. That was the luck of the draw that day of me going after to that the crime scene and over to the apartment building where she was murdered. At the time of the murder, Bassett was serving a 10-year term on probation for a drug conviction. Green on Thursday revoked the inmate's status and ordered him to serve that in addition to the life sentence. At trial, jurors also convicted Bassett of abusing Cal's corpse and tampering with evidence after killing her. Green agreed with prosecutor Rachel Hill that Bassett should serve the maximum amount of time for those crimes in the longest manner possible. He imposed 6-year and 2-year terms for those crimes and said Bassett should serve those in addition to life without parole. He's appealing his convictions. He and defense attorney Josh Hedrick likely will face that hearing in the spring before Green. Bassett, 31, is an inmate at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville. And he's put on quite a bit of weight. Looks nothing like his mug shot where his hair was nappy and all over his damn head. He's just a joke. And he's like a lot of men. They can't accept when things are not going their way. Things aren't working out. And then they decide to take the life of another human being. John Bassett received an extra 37 years in prison. He's not coming out of this prison in Nashville unless he can walk on water. But other than that, he'll be carried out in a body bag. Prayers to the Kyle family. My last conversations for this live stream will be pertaining to the Menendez brothers and Brooks Houck, the boyfriend of Miss Rogers, who went missing in Kentucky many years ago. A co-conspirator was brought up on tampering with evidence and conspiracy to murder weeks before his arrest. His lawyer is crying and moaning about a high bond. But as the state has said, well, he's a wealthy man. That's why the bond is, we want a high bond. Maybe you've never represented some wealthy people before. But this man has assets, properties. So this is why the state wants a higher bond. This is a very baffling story coming out of Kentucky. Naturally, his lawyer wants a different venue for the trial. And this trial is expected to possibly take place in 2025 because I'm sure there's a lot of evidence, materials, witnesses, and people to come forward to bring said information. Who talked in order to get this indictment against the co-conspirator and Mr. Houck? Who talked? I just saw a story tonight out of Texas. Kingwood teen allegedly beat, choked by own mother for not wearing hijab in social media posts. Wow. What in the hell is going on here? Let's talk about Crystal Rogers. Here's the latest update uploaded 7 hours ago. WHAS 11 is the source. Thank you all so much for your time. After this information pertaining to Crystal Rogers, we will talk about the Menendez brothers, Rosie O'Donnell. And should these boys be let out, these men be let out? Did the system get it wrong? The jury members get it wrong? Were they molested by their father? Did the mother know? How many other people know? How many other people have been molested by the father? If true, we also have new information that one of the Menudo members of the singing group has brought forward an allegation that Mr. Menendez violated his persons. What is the truth? Thank you for joining me, everybody.
Each different court appearance. Breaking news from the arraignment of Brooks Houck this afternoon in Nelson County. Houck appearing via live video for his first court appearance in the murder of Crystal Rogers. And then the surprise no one saw coming. Prosecutors dropping a major bombshell in this case, which has been full of key evidence in the murder of Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard. Our coverage begins right now at 4. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Doug Proffitt. The courtroom packed with family members stunned to learn that prosecutors have the gun they believe was used to kill Tommy Ballard, who was actively leading the search for his daughter. WHS 11's Shay McAllister and chief photojournalist Phil Merle are in Bardstown right now. And Shay, everyone was there to learn if Houck's $10 million bond would hold up. So how did this news about Tommy Ballard come out today?
Oh, Doug, well, when you think about a courtroom hearing here, there's a lot of things you expect to happen, and especially in an arraignment, and those things did happen. We talked about the bond reduction. They talked about the thousands, literally thousands of pages of evidence in the case. They also talked about a possible move of venue later on for trial. Here's what we didn't expect. A bombshell in another unsolved Bardstown case. The prosecutor telling us not only are they investigating Tommy Ballard's death, they think they know who was responsible. In front of a packed courtroom, another shocker in the small-town murder mystery that just keeps twisting and turning. For the first time, we hear who investigators believe killed Tommy Ballard. Special prosecutor Shane Young saying they are currently testing a gun that belonged to Nick Houck.
We're investigating the murder of Tommy Ballard that could potentially be related to this case. We are waiting for testing to come back on the firearm we believe was used to murder Tommy Ballard, a firearm that we purchased from Nicholas Houck, who was using a fake name when he sold the rifle.
Wow. The prosecutor going into detail about why he believes it will be a match.
You know, it's the same caliber. There's 5 criteria that they're looking at, and so far it's matched 4 of the 5 criteria.
In the front row of the courtroom, the Ballard family looked stunned, Sherry's eyes filling with tears. It was a moment this family has been waiting for.
That was feel real good, but we thought it all along. But after Prosecutor Shane made that statement, we felt a whole lot better, and I think it won't be too long.
He thinks Nick Houck could be the next arrest. But he and Brooks weren't the only ones from the Houck family mentioned in the courtroom. Prosecutor Shane Young accused the family of violating Kentucky law by secretly recording grand jury proceedings.
Defendant's sister, Rhonda McElvoy Houck, brother Nicholas Houck, mother Rosemary Houck, brother-in-law Alex McElvoy, and Rosemary Houck's live-in boyfriend, Larry Monk, all recorded, secretly brought in recorders and recorded the grand jury.
This is the craziest story of small town corruption, of a woman missing, her father later murdered, a cop murdered 2 years before she went missing, a co-conspirator finally arrested here recently, and now Mr. Houck, his brother owning a gun. So when did he sell the rifle? Why would you use a fake name to sell a rifle if you legally obtained the rifle? Where is he now, the brother, Nick? What is he doing now? Where does he live? Does he still live in the same town or in the state of Kentucky? Who killed Tommy Ballard? Was he such a threat because he wanted justice for his daughter that somebody would murder him? Why did it take so long for this case to get to a grand jury? Why did it take FBI so many years to take over the case? I believe it was 5 years after she went missing. How did these people walk into a grand jury room with secret recorders? This makes no sense to me. You were supposed to get your bags checked, purses checked when you go into a courtroom. And I'm assuming there should have been protocols even in 2015, 16, 17, 18. So if you see where I'm going with this. So how's it everybody got a recorder? Nobody would find that funny if you're going through the metal detector. 4 or 5 people got damn recorders on them. This is bullshit. See, there is corruption here. There's corruption that with the police department at the time. I won't doubt some of the sheriff officers were corrupt. I won't doubt that some of the people working in the damn courthouse, because these people are well known in the community. They're a little well off, and we know that one hand rubs the other, washes the other. When did they get this information about the grand jury? These family members of Mr. Houck walking in with recorders. This is bullshit. So did they have adequate security measures when this grand jury met? And what was the issue of it not solidifying to bring forward a charge of murder? body or no body of Miss Rogers. And the fact that Miss Sherry's had to go back and forth haggling with this man about the grandchildren. He said she was trying to poison the kids, saying bad things about him. So she ended up losing custody rights and visitations to the children. This is why you know these people are connected from one end or the other of this town judicially. Because now you're touching too many different avenues of where things are favoring them. You get a grand jury to meet, but no charge. You got a brother that was helping. Somebody kills the father. Then the grandmother's losing visitation rights to the children. Don't you see there's a pattern here? And then I'm sure a lot of the people in the town fear for their safety, so they probably didn't ever give their comment out publicly about this family, so they wouldn't end up dead. And I watched a documentary about a year or so ago where one of the family members, she moved out of there because she said she didn't want to live in a town. She didn't want to live in a place where she had to fear for her safety. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. Where is this woman's body? Where is she discarded? And who is talking for the co-conspirator to be arrested and now Mr. Houck? Somebody has had to speak up and tell something. So how many people know about the woman, where she was killed, the motive, who all helped in his family, how many outsiders helped in the murder? And will there be justice for Crystal Rogers and the father and the cop? Is there something going on with that cop that was killed? Was he investigating something and sensed something wrong and he was set up and killed? Or did he cross somebody in the town and they set him up by putting that tree branch in the road and killing him? This is a dirty place. It is obvious this is a dirty, dirty town. And I won't doubt that some people are still in the mix. And people in these small towns stick together just like they do in big cities, just like they do in state government, federal government. People just cover for each other. And it's sickening. It's not sad, it's pathetic. Because we're talking about dead folks. Body never recovered. Where is she? And how did the indictment come about for the co-conspirator? Who brought the information about the damn gun being sold with a fake name? Why did it take so long for all this to come to fruition?
They brought in recorders and recorded the grand jury. I've been practicing here, Your Honor, for 25 years in this state. And I have yet, ever heard of anyone recording a grand jury.
Yes, that's horrible.
The family was trying to get their story straight, trying to solidify a lie.
It's been stated before, the truth will set you free. The problem in this matter is the truth will imprison Brooks Houck. And we're asking Your Honor to keep the bond the same.
The defense did submit a request to lower the bond. It was what we thought would be the most interesting part of court today, but it was only covered briefly. The defense wants it lowered from $10 million to $500,000. Attorney Brian Butler called the current bond oppressive.
The grand jury out of Nelson County set this bond. I had been practicing 28 years. I had never heard of a bond even coming close to this.
And I can tell you, I've never asked for a $10 million bond. This is the first.
Well, first of all, he's well off. He has properties, so this is why the bond is high. And as I said before, maybe a lot of defendants come into court. They don't have any assets. They don't have any money. They don't have any properties. They don't have anything. My thing is this. He's been walking around free for what, 8 years or so? So why are you moaning and crying about a damn bond and what you ain't never heard of before and blah, blah, blah? Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. He's had freedom. Parents alive. Everybody's alive walking around. This girl is missing. Possibly dead. Father dead, probably killed by him and his goons. So what? And you want them to lower the bond to $500,000 because what? The co-conspirator's bond is $500,000. No, his is going to be more because he's the one that orchestrated the murder of Miss Rogers, sir. And he doesn't need to go liquidate all his properties to try to get out of damn jail. So he could what? Go on a run somewhere, take the kids and go underground? I don't think so. No. Leave it at $10 million.
I can tell you I've never asked for a $10 million bond. This is the first multi-millionaire I've prosecuted for murder.
Young alleges Houck's construction companies, rental properties, and real estate is worth $10 million, if not more. He says this bond is fair for someone who has so much to lose. Ultimately, the judge asked for more time to review the new information. He says he'll make a decision later. And as the courtroom emptied, we had some questions for Rosemary Houck, Brooke's mom. Rosemary, the special prosecutor accused you of violating Kentucky law today. What do you have to say about that?
Your son's involved in the deaths of...
Did your son Nick kill Tommy Ballard?
Look at her.
Did your son kill Tommy Ballard, Miss Houck?
Look at this woman. Stoic as all get out.
She didn't stop to provide any answers about her son Nick and the new accusations that he killed Tommy Ballard. But Tommy's dad had these final words.
I'm hoping he'll be the next one arrested.
In a case that continues to stun Kentucky and the nation, another bombshell comes out of court. One the Ballard family hopes is bringing them that much closer.
What's sickening about this story is the obvious. Who are you all going to shoot now? Since your golden boy is locked up, his co-conspirator is locked up. Where is Mr. Nick? Nick's got to be shaking his boots, worried if he's going to be arrested. And Mommy Dearest is walking out of the courtroom looking crazy. You need to be worried about yourself too, lady. Whoever came in that courtroom with a recorder, you know that is foul. Trying to get your story straight or find somebody else to knock off. That's what it sounds like to me. Let's see if I can recognize the grand jury members in here. You know, it's a small town. So imagine you're sitting as a grand jury member, looking at the family members and this man, knowing he's possibly killed this woman, and now they know what you look like. Yeah, it's probably more than just get the story straight. We now get to see the people who can make the decision. That's probably why they didn't damn make a decision, because they knew, oh, they know what we look like now. I ain't trying to end up like Mr. Ballard, dead, shot dead, end up like Crystal, missing. Hell yeah. You'd be afraid coming up out of there. Oh, they know what we look like now. So we're just going to have to say, not enough evidence. I'm sure these people have been walking around scared in this town to speak, talk against these people, period. Ask not to end up missing or dead, like Crystal and her father. The fact that he had rental properties. Are you hearing this? Who the hell wants to rent from this bloke? Hey, don't pay your rent on time. You might go missing, might be found shot to death. God forbid he didn't fix something in your rental house. You call to complain, you go missing, end up dead. Yeah, I said that because if you kill that woman and kill her daddy, you would kill me as a person renting from you. Hey, what's the difference? Brother was a cop, probably had some other sneaky, conniving ass officers working, sheriff deputies. This is a town that you don't even stop in to use the bathroom. Just keep on down the interstate. What is it, Bardstown? Do they make whiskey there? Because, you know, a lot of breweries make whiskey in the state of Kentucky for those who don't drink whiskey. It's a whiskey state. And I can tell you, I wouldn't stop in this town if it had the only damn McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Burger King. I'd keep it moving. No way I live there. They probably don't have any black people there anyway.
Nation, another bombshell comes out of court. One the Ballard family hopes is bringing them that much closer to real justice.
I don't even see any black people in the court.
And the next court date is set for February, right here in Nelson County. Of course, eventually, it won't be here in Nelson County. The defense already told us today they do plan to ask for a change for this trial to be held in a different county. so that Brooks Houck can have a fair trial. Now let's dive into that a little bit more.
Do you hear this bullshit? So he can have a fair trial. I think you've had fairness since you've been living there. You've been walking free for years without an indictment. No justice has been served for 8 years. You walking around this town and this girl's been missing. And her daddy dead. And anybody with sense would know it's all connected. Just so happened that daddy dies, shot, while out and about. Somebody parked off the side of the interstate and parked their truck through the brush. Oh, I've seen the documentaries where the truck was set up possibly for somebody to have a bullseye view to shoot that man. And lo and behold, here's the rifle that they believe is connected, that the brother owned, Mr. Nick, and he sold it under an assumed name. Are you all hearing this? How about that? So when did the state get this information? Who was the person that gave up the information? And that person needs to be leery about giving up the information or buying the rifle, because you got to worry about what? Now going into court to testify against these people because they like knocking people off and getting people gone. Oh, bourbon, not whiskey. Oh, well, whichsoever. It's all the same to me, sweetheart. It's dark liquor. This is so appalling. But we know corruption goes on in many places. Not necessarily small towns, but all over the world. But it's worse. This is worse because people have to have somewhere to live. And when it's a small town, people talk, they watch, they gawk. And things get out very easily in small towns. Somebody knows who ain't turned the water on, paid the water bill, the light bill, the gas bill. Everybody knows who's been arrested even before it gets in the newspaper. This is bad, bad, bad. The fact that the defense wants another place for trial is a joke to me, because this man has been able to walk free. No justice for this woman and her father. And there may be also a link to the death of the officer 2 years before her disappearance. I believe there's corruption in this town. I would pray that there's not corruption now. But who's to say? And I still would be leery living in this town. And even if they take it to another jurisdiction, some of those people might fear for their safety, the jury members. And what about the witnesses? Who are the witnesses going to be that's going to bring forward information against this Mr. Brooks Houck, his brother, and possibly family members? How many family members are we talking about that walked into the grand jury box with their recorders? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is bad. Let's finish this content, everybody.
Well, now let's dive into that a little bit more. Everyone in the United States has the right to a fair trial, something that Houck's defense team is working hard to guarantee for their own client. So what would a trial with this much media attention actually look like? Judges have relied on 6 major ways to combat press publicity on a jury. One is a change of venue. When the defendant could ask to move the trial to a different area, it would take the trial out of Nelson County into a different county here in Kentucky. Conversely, judges could also bring a jury from another place. So the jurors would not come from Bardstown. They would go through an extensive voir dire process to see if they've heard of it or they know about the case. Juries from other areas might know less or haven't been exposed to the media coverage compared to people right here in Bardstown and Nelson County. There is still a very lengthy process to go before we reach a trial. It could be more than a year before we see Brooks on trial. In fact, today, Brian Butler, the defense attorney in this case, told the judge he doesn't think it's realistic that there will be a trial in 2024. He's already looking ahead to 2025. Well, as you know, Brooks is not the only person in this case. There is a co-defendant. His name is Joseph Lawson, and he was arrested just a couple of weeks before Brooks. A Nelson County grand jury indicted Joseph Lawson on 2 charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. Lawson was arrested on September 8th. He was arraigned shortly thereafter. The court entered a not guilty plea on both of those charges. The bond was set at $500,000, and his next court date is October 26th. Well, taking a closer look now at this investigation, it has been 8 years in the making. It has certainly been a lot of developments, much like today. Every time there is something happening in this case, there's a twist and a turn. Let's look back now at some of those developments.
Crystal was last seen alive on July 3rd of 2015. At the time, the Nelson County Sheriff's Office was handling the case. Brooks Houck told police the couple had fed cows at the family farm and then went home together. He says the next morning she was gone. 4 months later, the sheriff at the time announced Crystal was presumed dead.
She has vanished.
And declared Houck the main suspect.
No problem. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
The FBI took over Crystal's case 5 years later. They'd spend the next 2 years searching several properties from the home of Brooks' brother, former Bardstown police officer Nick Houck, and the family farm. That brings us to June 21st of this year, when a grand jury indicted 32-year-old Joseph Lawson on 2 charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. His attorney confirmed it was in connection to the Crystal Rogers case. And finally, the arrest of Brooks Houck, now charged with murder and tampering with evidence, on a $10 million cash bond.
Wow. Well, somebody said something, this co-conspirator, because why was he indicted for conspiracy? He said something.
And I just sat down this week to answer some of your common questions about the Crystal Rogers case, the other Bardstown murders, and what it's been like to work this investigation for the last 8 years. If you're interested, you can find that conversation. It's 20 minutes long. It's on the WHAS 11 YouTube page. Doug?
Well, Shay, we've got a lot of questions to go over right here at 4 o'clock. Let's go back to the $10 million bond. Do we have a decision from the judge yet on that? I know the arguments were pretty strong from Brian Butler to lower it. Can you go over those again?
Absolutely. Okay, so here was the main case on both sides. Brian Butler said in all of his years of defense work and all of the clients that he has had and that he hasn't represented, he has never seen a bond at $10 million. He said at most 1 million or 3 million, never 10 million. He said that this would kill Brooks Houck's business. This would leave his son without a father. And that if he were truly to stay in jail until trial on a $10 million bond, it would be very detrimental to his defense. He wouldn't be able to work with the attorneys the way Brian Butler wants him to. On the other side, Shane Young, the prosecutor, said it was $10 million for a reason. He said he too has never imposed a $10 million bond, but Brooks Houck has a lot of assets. 3 different companies, more than 70 rental properties, huge real estate sales just in recent years.
70.
He said for Brooks Houck, $500,000 is chump change. It's nothing. He would most certainly get out. The judge did want time to review all of this. Multiple documents were handed over today. So the judge said he's going to read through all of that. He will write a written order. He will submit it online. That's where we'll find out about that bond.
Okay, so no decision at this hour as we speak. But of course, I know the question you've been asking, the one everybody up here still wants to know, Nick Houck. He was really named in this as a possible in connection with this today, but he remains a free man as we speak tonight.
It's a truly stunning development. You don't typically hear investigators, prosecutors mention main suspects before they make an arrest. It was shocking 8 years ago when the Nelson County Sheriff at the time called Brooks Houck the main suspect in the case. Today, the prosecutor didn't use the word suspect, but he certainly hinted at a person of interest in Tommy Ballard's murder by saying that they had purchased this gun from him. They were testing it, and they believed it was used in that case. That was not something we were expecting, Doug. That was a huge bombshell today.
Fuel is the...
All right, everybody. That's the latest information pertaining to Crystal Rogers. WHAS 11 is the source. This lady has been working on this case since the beginning, this reporter. Oh, mercy, where do I begin? Who killed Mr. Ballard? Was it Mr. Brooks, Houck, and his brother Nick and other family members, that they all conspired to kill him, to make him stop talking about the missing young lady. Why would he stop talking about it? That's his daughter. And guess what? It's 8 years and we're still talking about her because now we have more information. Somebody's brought forward information, and a grand jury has indicted this man. He's young. He'll probably die in prison. And Mr. Houck, you'll be right there beside him. We can find 12 members of a jury that will listen to the information brought by the state. He owns 70 rental properties. I think she mentioned he had 2 companies, other investments. And I'm assuming this is why the bond is $10 million. The defense wants it dropped to $500,000, such as his co-conspirator. But I'm sure the co-conspirator doesn't have any wealth, assets. And I'm sure he would hate to liquidate all his properties to get the money. Maybe he'll try to do property bond, but I don't think that's going to stand in court. They're going to want cash. No property bonds. Should they have shared this information pertaining to the gun in court? That's what I want to know from you all. Because as you hear this reporter say, she was stunned that they would mention a possible suspect, which would be Nick, the brother, selling the gun with using a fake name. So should the state have mentioned that in court, giving a heads up to the defense and the public? Maybe they wanted them to know. Have him shaking in his boots, see if he'll make a mistake. Because I won't doubt they're probably watching him. So they said, let's go ahead and let everybody know. We believe this gun that he sold with a fake name, using a fake name, is we found it. And we've been testing it. Wow, wow, wow. WDRB has the full arraignment of Mr. Brooks. If you want to watch that, I'm going to share that to my community page for those of you who want to see him in court. I'm sure he is not doing very well right now. Mommy and daddy and everybody are not well. Prayers for Miss Sherry and family members, because this has been a long run for her. And I can't imagine losing my child and my husband. This is enough to break a person, send a person over the edge to where they just literally crack up. But yet she's still here because God has favored her. And I won't doubt that she probably has faith in God. And that's what has pulled her through, and having support from friends and family. But I'm telling you, I can't imagine living in this town, because who do you trust? Who do you trust when you live in a place where these people have money, are possibly prominent in the community, they own properties, companies, investments? You'd be afraid to say anything to anybody in fear that they'd get back to them. Well, I better not say anything because I don't know if they know them or not. And I'm sure the town was possibly divided to some degree. People favoring this family, the Houck family, and then people favoring this family, Miss Rogers' family, the Ballards. Have to be a very awkward situation. Judicially, the courthouse, police, sheriff, all the people that work in the community in the little, doing whatever they do in the town. As I said, can't say anything because you got to worry about it getting back. So really, you're walking on pins and needles in a place that you possibly felt safe living at one time or another. I wouldn't want that kind of life. That's a terrible way to live. And small towns are worse because a lot of people are used to living in small towns. They come from small towns. It's all they know. They're not trying to leave that area. That's why a lot of people can't make it in other places, because when you grow up in a small town, you have a certain way of navigating. And the way people navigate in small towns is not how they navigate in bigger cities. So if this is all you know, you probably can't make it anywhere else. So imagine being a part of this fiasco here, this macabre business. People falling over dead everywhere, getting shot, missing. And you're too afraid to say 2 words to anybody because you got to worry about somebody going back repeating what you're saying. And you got to worry about somebody going to come hunt you down in your sleep or shoot you going to your car in your driveway. This will be a terrible way to live. But hoping justice will come swiftly for Ms. Rodgers and Mr. Ballard. And indeed, the officer who was shot at 13, if there's any illegal wranglings with the police department, Nick, if he's involved in that, I don't know. We will see. This is, ooh, mercy. They talk about small towns. Lord have mercy. Scary, very scary. The Menendez brothers, Rosie O'Donnell has been very vocal about the brothers. My last conversation for this live stream. This is a winded live stream. We're now into hour 2 hours and 20 minutes. If true, do you think that Mrs. Menendez knew her sons were essayed by their father? 50% says yes, 21% says no, 29% says not sure. Will this new allegation against Mr. Menendez help free the brothers? 32% says yes, 37% says no, 32% of you said not sure. Should Menendez brothers be released from prison? 37% says yes, 63% of you said no. Do you believe the allegation that Mr. Menendez essayed a Menudo group member? 50% says yes, 11% no, 39% says not sure, and I have one comment. Let's see what this person has to say. This is a rare case where I believe the Menendez brothers are really telling the truth. I believe the dad abused them physically and emotionally. The way they were so emotional during court was not an act, in my opinion. It doesn't justify murder, obviously. I believe the mom knew what was going on as well. I wouldn't doubt that the father would commit such acts on someone else as well. Just my gut feeling. That is from Happy Hippie. Were Menendez brothers justified in killing parents? It's true. They were molested by father. Yes, 38%. No, 62%. Do you believe Menendez brothers were molested by their father? 63% of you said yes. 22% says no. 16% says not sure. One comment. Diamond Girl says, I will always believe the claim until it can be proved otherwise. Exclamation point. Okay, then. Wow, wow, wow. Rosie has talked to one of the brothers, got new information pertaining to the group Menudo. I remember watching them as a child growing up in Chicago. Saturday mornings, I would get up and watch ABC cartoons as a child, and that was one of the shows that would come on. Menudo on ABC. Menudo on ABC. I remember that like it was yesterday. Which Menudo member has allegations of Mr. Menendez touching him inappropriately? Are the allegations true? And if he touched one, did he touch the others? We also have conversations allegedly from one of the brothers or brothers to one of the female cousins. Letters written about the abuse. Or was it a setup of letters? Let's write something to pretend I'm being touched as to aid this murder we're going to commit. Because you do have people who falsify paperwork, letters, documents to use as an alibi to commit murder. Lord have mercy. What do we have here? And once again, as I told you earlier, Miss Suzanne Morphew, her remains have been identified. Oh, Lord have mercy. What a mess, what a mess, what a mess. Let's see. Court TV would be my source pertaining to the Menendez brothers. This is just crazy. And Court TV has just released more commentary pertaining to Crystal Rogers, and it says possible link to her father's murder. If you want to check out that content. Let me get up here. Because I was listening to it yesterday, briefly, or the day before, or early in the morning, pertaining to we also have new information from Court TV about Rex Heuermann. New evidence in Rex Heuermann case could link to serial killings. Very interesting. This is a winded conversation with Rosie O'Donnell. I'm going to have to play just bits and pieces, but please check the YouTube queue for the verification, and also it's posted to my community board pertaining to this new allegation.
Legendary trials, the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric. In 1989, their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, were murdered. It was a shocking crime scene that looked like a mob hit. Jose and Kitty were shot several times with a shotgun as they sat on their couch eating ice cream and watching a movie. At first, Lyle and Eric were treated as victims. But when their therapist's ex came forward with information that the brothers had confessed during therapy sessions, everything changed. Eventually, the brothers were charged. At trial, they claimed to be the victims of...
Let's talk about that. The ex of the doctor says they confessed to him. So what are you doing with information pertaining to what they said to the psychiatrist, ma'am? Did the psychiatrist reveal that the boys had confessed to him? If so, he broke protocol. You're not supposed to be discussing anything in a counseling session, such as even with an attorney. Attorney-client privilege. It's the same for doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, so on and so forth. And you can be brought up before the ethics board, be reprimanded, and or lose your practicing license. So how did it go? She snuck and went through his files, documents. He told her what they said. Was she eavesdropping on a private conversation between the psychiatrist and the boys? How did she get information that they confessed to him? This is very crazy here.
Eventually, the brothers were charged. At trial, they claimed to be the victims of sex abuse and violence. The first jury could not reach a unanimous verdict, and there was a mistrial. But when they were retried, they were convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Tonight, the brothers have a new advocate who is calling for them to be released from prison. Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie has spent time with them and recently released an interview with Lyle on her podcast. And tonight, Rosie O'Donnell joins us live for the hour as we investigate the Menendez brothers' murder convictions. I'm Vinny Baldan. Great to have you with us here in Closing Arguments. This is going to be an extremely interesting hour, so I hope you can stay with us as we take a look at one of Court TV's most legendary trials. Right now, by the way, it is streaming on our other channel, Court TV Legendary Trials. I'm talking, of course, about the Menendez brothers. When Court TV was born many moons ago in the early 90s, this was really, before O.J. Simpson, this case was the first case that really caught fire nationally and really, to a certain extent, polarized many people on what they thought of these defendants, of these accused murderers. And the way the public was polarized, the same thing happened in the jury room in their first trial. They had two juries for the first trial, one for each brother, but none of them could reach a unanimous verdict in the case. And they were retried and they were convicted. But the part of the trial that caught everyone's attention and really stirred up the debate was, were they or were they not victims of sexual abuse? Were they or were they not the victims of the violence of their father, Jose Menendez? the man in their lives who controlled everything that they did? Was he the monster that they were describing in the courtroom, or was it two spoiled kids who had all this money in the world but wanted access to all of their parents' money as well, who were just spoiled and in an act of greed murdered their parents so they can enjoy the money without all the hassle of having a mom and dad? I mean, that was what the debate was. Ultimately, they were convicted, and of course, there were a lot of interesting legal issues in the case. So there were appeals upon appeals, but they've lost all those appeals. There's no appellate court to go to at this point. But it's not over until it's over in these cases. Whenever there's a conviction, we've seen it happening in California with Scott Peterson, allegations of new evidence, trying to get a new trial. Well, that's the allegation here as well, is that there are new things that if the first jury or first juries heard, may very well have changed the absolute complexion of the trials. It may have changed the verdict. So with this new evidence, the question is, do they deserve to be released from prison? Do they deserve a second trial? Or is it, again, going to be another attempt to be released that will go without any relief?
So we have to ask, how can you get a new trial if you don't have any appeals left, Mr. Vinny? How is that possible? Do you think they could have been freed a long time ago had this woman never brought forward her information that they confessed to the psychiatrist? Naturally, if they're doing their evidence, fact-checking the evidence, detectives, it would have led them to the boys anyway, even if this lady had never brought forward this information. Please take the polls on my community page pertaining to the Menendez brothers and other breaking news. Thank you very much. Did this father violate these boys or one of the boys? Did he violate one of the Menudo singing members? What is the truth to the allegations? Should they be freed? And if you want to get a new trial, there'll have to be proof of a technicality or something left out of the previous trials, improprieties. This is, I don't know. And many will say you don't have a right to kill your parents, even if they have physically, sexually abused you verbally. Just leave. Leave the fold. Did they kill their parents for money to get access to their estate? Was it a issue of molestation? Just, we want to get rid of these people. We want their money. We want to live high off the hog. What is the truth? Or could it be both? Our mother knew all along this man was violating us. She did nothing. He's never going to stop. We don't have the guts to just cut these people off and go our separate way. We're tied to these people because we don't know how to be on our own. And yes, he's been touching us. And yeah, we want that money too. Is it a combination of both? He did violate the boys, and they did want the damn money.
Will go without any relief. But this is real, because there's two new things that are pretty significant. The first is, remember the allegations by the brothers that they're victims of sexual abuse. People are like, what? Really? Where did that come from? Well, now their father, Jose, was a big-time music record executive. And one of the groups that was on his label was Menudo, which is for those who don't know Menudo, young boys from Puerto Rico. Ricky Martin was a member of the group originally. And then they would replace the members with young kids, always. One former member of that group says that he was sexually assaulted and raped by Jose.
Not just touched.
Brand new information, brand new revelation. No one knew about this at the time of the trials. Would that have changed the jury's mind? Also, a letter that was written by Eric Menendez to his cousin has now been uncovered. It's been uncovered for a couple of years, but it was nowhere to be found at the time that these cases were tried. And in this letter, Eric alludes to being the victim of his father.
So why is this letter now coming out? If I had the letter, let's say I'm the cousin, and I wanted to get my cousins free from jail, wouldn't I have given this letter to the state attorney to say, hey, this is what he wrote to me. I believe what he said in this letter. We've had many conversations about the allegations, and I believe him. Why would you not show this while they were going to trial? I'm confused. Could this letter have helped them get off, even if there was admittance that they shot the father out of their own mouths? Because I do believe they testified. So where has this letter been all this time? And why are we just now hearing of the letter? Who has possession of the letter? That's what I'd like to know. Who has possession of the letter? Will it help in any type of way to perhaps members of the parole board? Well, let's let them go. And how would you all feel about them going free? Is 30-something years enough for killing two people in cold blood, a mother and a father, despite what you believe the mother and father knew and or did to the boys? And I also find it strange an older boy being molested by a father or anybody, because don't you think a boy child of their age would fight back? Not a kid anymore. You can't touch me. You can't grope me. You can't rape me. Stay woke now. Because I can't see, even at the age of 15 and up, allowing another man to touch you, or even another boy child. Because I would think this is the age where a boy child would be combative and have enough oomph in him to say, you're not going to be touching me anymore, if it's been going on or if it's a first time offense. Do you believe the allegations against Jose Menendez that he violated his children? Do you believe these people were tyrants in their house with their children, that they were too harsh as parents? Although the boys had a good life as far as amenities, but we already know that's not enough to secure a decent navigation through life, living in a nice house, nice cars. How you're treated is most important. Are you loved by your parents? Do they pat you on the back? Do they congratulate you? Do they say they love you? Are they affectionate? That is what human beings need. And many people say they don't need it. I don't believe that. Everybody wants to be validated at some point in life. And you need to start doing it when they are children. Not when they're grown. It's too late then. Imagine living in a household where you had tyrants for parents, and then they don't say they like you or congratulate you until you're damn near 50 years old. Well, it wouldn't even matter at that point now, would it? It'd probably just go in one ear and out the other. Oh, yeah, I've always loved you. You heard that 1,000 times from many people who parents like to say that when they realize they have mistreated their children. I've always loved you. I just had a hard time of showing you. Well, that wouldn't mean anything if, let's say, you died at some point and you were never able to tell me that. What is the truth about these brothers? The Menudo singing group, one of the members bringing allegations against Mr. Menendez, conversations with Miss O'Donnell, and this cousin and this mystery letter.
And that was one of the issues for the jury. Are they really telling the truth, or are they just making this up because they got caught?
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, because someone else is talking about it. Joining me tonight, comedian, actress, author, producer, television personality, and now the host of the Onward podcast, where she is talking about this case. Rosie O'Donnell joins us. Rosie, great to see you tonight.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Welcome to our world of true crime, justice, and trials. Is this something that has always been a passion of yours, or is this a newfound interest because of this particular case?
Well, it's interesting, Vin. Years ago in 1996, when my talk show started, I received a letter from Lyle Menendez, a very long, involved, beautifully written letter that said that he had heard something I said in his defense back then, talking about the case, and he wondered if I had lived through something similar. And at the time, it was a very jarring conversation, and it kind of scared me. And I don't know that I was ready to discuss things, private things that belonged in our family. And I talked to Barbara Walters, who had just interviewed them at dinner with Cindy Berger, and she said, "Oh, Rosie, he's a manipulator. You don't want to get involved with him." And so I never wrote him back, and I always felt guilty about that. But I'm not somebody who gets involved in true crimes. I don't listen to the Serial or, all of those things. And like you were saying, Scott Peterson, I have no understanding or never had any interest in that case. But the Menendez brothers, watching them on trial in their first trial when they were allowed to have a defense, when they had 51 witnesses in their defense, and the DA didn't win because there was a hung jury. So what happened is they decided, the DA, whether or not this is legal, you can tell me, that at the second trial, presided over by the same judge that had been presided over the first one, the boys were not allowed to use any sex abuse evidence. How is that fair?
Yeah, I understand that.
So it's like the DA lost fairly, and then they changed the rules, and they stacked the deck, and they didn't allow them to have their own defense. So I go about my life. I'm not.
So why in the second trial the judge didn't allow it? Because anybody can bring forward any type of defense for their client, I thought. They did this because of this. So why was it not allowed? So then what defense did they use for the second trial then? If they weren't allowed to talk about being essayed by the father. Very interesting. But I know there's so many different types of laws on the books, and every state has different laws and what can be entered as evidentiary material. But I didn't think a judge would have jurisdiction on a defense, what your defense could be. I mean, I know there's certain stipulations as far as pleading insanity or not, but I didn't know you can't say, well, they can't mention he touched them inappropriately as a defense. I don't know. It's very strange. 51 witnesses in the first trial. That's a lot. 51. And they got a hung jury, trial 1. So how many were in favor of getting them off, letting them off, I wonder?
So I go about my life. I'm not following the case at all. And I see the new documentary, Boys Betrayed, on Peacock, where Roy from Menudo was telling his story.
Oh, Roy. Okay,
and
that's
I
his name.
felt compelled to reach out to them and say, I know what it's like to grow up in a family with that kind of dynamic, and I want to understand what happened more fully because I believe them. I believe that they were incested.
So she believes they were incested. Lyle asked her if she ever went through any of this type of ordeal. She never responded. Now she feels guilty that she didn't. Are these young men telling the truth? And what has Rosie gone through as far as being violated as a child? This is deep. Or as Mr. Vinny has said, did the boys use this essay as a ruse to try to get off from killing their parents in cold blood? Maybe their parents weren't the nicest of parents, but did they violate the children in a sexual manner? Lord have mercy.
And there's a lot of evidence to prove that they were. There's physical evidence, there's photographs, there's cousins and first-person accounts. So,
first cousins accounts, evidence. What is the evidence, Rosie, that they have to show? Because now we have to go back in time. Well, if there's evidence, why wasn't there evidence that would lead 12 members of a jury to cohesively say not guilty, or at least guilty of what? Manslaughter? Self-defense? Who are these relatives? Have any of them been accosted by Mr. Menendez? Did the wife know that her husband was a sadist and she turned a blind eye towards her children and other children? What is the truth? Will the truth ever be revealed? Because imagine now people come out, start saying, yeah, he touched me. Yeah, he touched me. That would be jacked up. Then they're going to be people that say, oh, that's not true. You're just making that up. You're just trying to get those those men out of prison. But then you have to ask yourself the obvious. Who wants to make up a story about being violated by their own relative or by anybody for that matter? And then imagine somebody wasting away in prison, perhaps, on what some people thought was a lie, but was the truth. And nobody came to their defense. But they said they had 51 witnesses in the first trial, but the jury couldn't decide. And naturally, they let the boys stay in prison, no bond, to walk freely, I guess. How do you all feel about murdering someone on the allegation and or belief that they have violated a child? Do you think it's right to murder someone who has touched a child inappropriately? Some will say, yeah, I don't care what happens to them. Whether it's my child or not, I don't care. They don't deserve life, period. Then some will say they deserve a death penalty if they touch kids. But naturally, you only get death penalty when you've murdered someone or more. Very interesting. Have these people, these brothers rather, have they manipulated, hoodwinked Miss Rosie, found them an ally, but they're not telling the truth?
Cousins and first-person accounts. So I wrote a little TikTok, and then Lyle's wife, Rebecca Menendez, reached out to me and said Lyle would like to talk to you. And that was in the spring, and we've been talking a lot and come to know each other. And I support who he is as a person and what he's done. And I feel 34 years for a crime that occurred at a time when our culture was not ready to believe that fathers raped their boys as well as their daughters. And I think that if Eric was a girl and Lyle about to go off to his second semester in Princeton, the secret of incest is revealed 5 days before the murder. It's crazy. A tinderbox, a house full of incest and secrets. All the secrets were revealed, and 5 days later, their parents were dead. That doesn't seem to me like premeditation.
5 days before. So how was it revealed, Miss Rosie? What was the hot box that exploded? Did the boys come out and say something to the mother? Or did somebody go to the authorities and say something about the parents, the father? I don't understand. How did it all come to fruition? Did the boys confront their father with touching them? I'd like her to elaborate on that. I'm trying to get a better understanding.
Premeditation.
So let's get to some of this new information. And I want to start first. You spoke on your podcast with Lyle Menendez about this letter that Eric had written. And let's take a listen to that first.
Today's the day I finally got Fabletics Scrub.
Sorry about that brief commercial. So Eric writes a letter to a relative. Oh, Lord have mercy. Do you believe this is true?
My father's sister, her son, Andy, Eric used to correspond with him in the early 80s and late 80s, I guess. They were both teenagers. And she found a letter that Eric wrote that had been in storage for 25 years. It wasn't about directly all about the sex abuse, but referenced it pretty graphically. And so, amazingly, she did not actually give it to anybody. My attorney tried to think she gave it to Barbara Walters for a show because she just didn't think there were even any appeals going on. And, just so much time had passed by, she just didn't think about it. But eventually we saw it on that show. People investigated and realized that it was a letter that no one had found, had not been presented at trial.
Wow.
Had been in storage for 25 years because her son had died in 2003. So she just packed everything up.
Wow.
And so it's very powerful evidence because it was written 8 months prior to my parents' death.
And that's the significance. You're talking about corroboration, right? You're alleging something. Did you say anything about it before the killing? And he did. Let's put it up here. We have a piece of that letter. This is from Eric Menendez to his cousin, Andy. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know if I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it. And that's Andy Cano, his cousin. And Rosie, this is corroboration. This is like when someone is sexually assaulted and they cry out to somebody, to a witness. I mean, it's him himself writing this letter to his cousin Andy, who testified at the first trial.
Correct. And this evidence really follows their story and their truth and what I believe to be the truth of the case. That here was a family and Lyle was sexually abused by the father until he was 8. He told a cousin who was 18. That cousin talked to her mother, the mother's sister, and it stopped. But what he didn't know was that the father had started with his 5-year-old brother. And it went all the way up until Eric was about to leave for college. He got into UCLA or USC, I believe. And his father said, "You're not allowed to live in the dorm." And he started to cry. This is right after Lyle came back from Princeton with his mother, where they set up his off-campus apartment for him to start his second term. His life had sort of begun on the East Coast. He was a tennis player. He was set to start his life. They tried to indict them on the concept that they did this for money, but there was not enough evidence to do that. So when the second trial came about and they were stripped of their defense, yes, they were found guilty. And a district attorney that was looking for a guilty verdict.
Now,
this is so ridiculous to me if this is true. What will make this grown man stop touching his kid? He's the parent. Bigger. What I say, go, unless somebody found out and confronted him. So we have Lyle saying he stopped touching me. So then he moved on to the baby boy, Eric. And then we have this letter Eric wrote to the cousin, the boy cousin. And that boy cousin testified during the first trial. This is crazy to me. And this aunt has to have known something, because I believe she's the reason why he stopped with Lyle, if I'm not mistaken, what I just heard here in this commentary of him messing with the kids. This is baffling to me. Hold on one second. I'm going to go back a little bit.
And he did. Let's put it up here. We have a piece of that letter. This is from Eric Menendez to his cousin, Andy. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know if I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it. And that's Andy Cano, his cousin. And Rosie, this is corroboration. This is like when someone is sexually assaulted and they cry out to somebody, to a witness. I mean, it's him himself writing this letter to his cousin Andy, who testified at the first trial.
Correct. And this evidence really follows their story and their truth and what I believe to be the truth of the case. That here was a family and Lyle was sexually abused by the father until he was 8. He told a cousin who was 18. That cousin talked to her mother, the mother's sister, and it stopped. But what he didn't know was that the father had started with his 5-year-old brother. And
so it said he told a female relative, she told her sister. So this makes no sense. Did he stop because somebody confronted him about it? Threatened to go to the police, the state? But then he picks up and starts messing with the younger boy child. Maybe Lyle, he felt threatened by the 8-year-old, then he stopped touching him. So let me start messing with the 5-year-old. Do you all hear this? So I can't imagine in my head, you're messing with a 5-year-old, 8-year-old, it's all the same to me. And you're still messing with a 5-year-old all the way up until 18, 17, 18. Don't want him to move into the dorm. So what, you want him to come, he can go to college, but he got to stay at the house. What kind of life is that going to be for a college student? If they want to, live on campus, enjoy campus life, campus festivities. And really, that was their way out. You being touched by your parent up until 18, seemed like to me, going away to college is your way out. Leave and don't ever come back. I don't care what they're offering, monies, car, whatever. Chalk it. I gotta go. I'm done with these people. And maybe this is some truth. He wanted to be on that campus so he could have a way out. Eric. And see, that's the thing about being dependent on people who are your abusers. You've got this life that looks great to other people, but behind closed doors, it's unsavory with the caretakers, improprieties, sadism. But you don't have the will to break free as another child might do. Other children may have said, F this, I'm out of here, running away. Tired of these people touching me, abusing me, physically abusive, verbally abusive. I don't want to be here anymore. Tell a teacher, tell somebody. So did they ever tell a teacher? This is bad if this is true. Because like I said, why would he stop molesting one and then pick up on the second one? I would think you'd still be simultaneously messing with both unless Lyle was headstrong, was saying something to him as an 8-year-old. Hey, stop, I don't like it. Got scared. Or somebody confronted him and said, hey, Lyle says you're touching him. Is this true? So did the wife know? And did one of the relatives, his sister or somebody, confront him with the allegations about Lyle, which led the father to then start molesting Eric?
With his 5-year-old brother. And it went all the way up until Eric was about to leave for college. He got into UCLA or USC, I believe. And his father said, you're not allowed to live in the dorm. And he started to cry. This is right after Lyle came back from Princeton with his mother, where they set up his off-campus apartment for him to start his second term. His life had sort of begun on the East Coast. He was a tennis player. He was set to start his life. They tried to indict them on the concept that they did this for money, but there was not enough evidence to do that. So when the second trial came about and they were stripped of their defense, yes, they were found guilty. And a district attorney that was looking for a guilty verdict.
Now, the other revelation you've alluded to, but I want to play a piece of your interview with Lyle talking about this revelation that one of the members of Menudo, the group that was on Jose's record label, he was an executive at RCA. Take a listen.
Brief intermission. Are these allegations true?
That was on Jose's record label. He was an executive at RCA. Take a listen.
I did not know Roy and didn't know the fact that he had been raped by my father and was another victim, came out to a documentary investigation they were doing on the band separately from anything related to Eric and I.
So, and there's a picture of Roy, who's making these allegations. So, Rosie, with this petition that is being made, there's different ways a judge can react to all of it, right? Can dismiss it outright and say there's nothing here. But if the judge believes there is something here, what should what should be next? What should the process be? And you may or may not know I'm a former prosecutor, right? So that's the way I see the world.
Yes,
my concern is the truth. And I argue all the time that we shield the jury, whether it's stuff about the victim or stuff about the defendant, we shield them a little too much. And in this case, we were shielding them from what the allegations against the victim. All this stuff to me is very, very relevant for a jury. But you're thinking he should be released as a result of this or get a new trial as a result of this?
I would hope then that he gets sentenced, he and his brother. The first question that Lyle answered on the stand was, are you responsible for the death of your parents? And his answer was yes.
Okay, so
they were young. They were 21 and 18 when this happened, and this was years and years and years of being built up, and they had no choice in their mind, the mind of a tortured and abused, sexually incested boy, that he was made the only choice that felt safe to him. He felt he was going to be killed by the father, and the father had threatened that to him, had said, if you tell Lyle, I'm going to kill you, Eric. They were not only horrific sexual deviance, but there was, pins put in their body and their thighs and their penis. It was horrible, torturous abuse that they suffered for the first 20 years of their life. Yes, they were rich, but that doesn't change everything. It doesn't change an incestuous household and the tension within there at the
I'm trying to picture a grown man just walking up to a child who's now older, trying to touch them without the child trying to fight him off. 2, putting pins in their body parts. This is crazy to me. Did these boys try to fight them off when they were older? At least Eric, since that's who he maneuvered to him allegedly after stopping the abuse with Lyle at 8. Did he try to fight his father off, or was he the more timid one, Eric? I just, in my mind, I guess I view girls and boys differently, as most people would. I just can't see boys, especially at a particular age, allowing a man to touch them, knowing they're not supposed to be allowing a man to touch them. You understand what I'm saying? I would see a boy fighting a man off, trying to fight him off, pushing him off, versus a girl, maybe being scared to do anything. That's where I have the problem. Because in my mind, I just can't picture it. A man touching an older boy child and the boy child not rebuking him, not trying to fight him off. Hey, stop. What are you doing? Hey, that's not right. Hey, I ain't into this. I ain't like that. That's where I have the issue. So hearing that he was touching this boy child up until getting ready to go to college, he's grown. And you know that a lot of men who are gay and bisexual, they are this way because they have been violated as children. Okay? Not all, but I'm sure a majority of young men who identify as gay or bisexual, they have been violated. Now imagine this, which I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Imagine you've been violated by your own relative, your father, and then you end up going to prison for murdering him and your mother, he and the mother, and now you're around that atmosphere where I'm sure there's men-on-men action in the prison. So I wonder if they have been accosted in prison or they have freely engaged in sexual activity with men in prison. because you've already been introduced to that life by your father, allegedly. Because I do not know if these allegations are true or not. But just imagine that. Your father has violated you. You're trying your best to get away, run away from this world that you've been introduced to by your own damn parent, to only kill the parents, to then be in a prison surrounded by men all damn day. And that type of behavior going on. Lord have mercy. You can't make this stuff up.
And the tension within there at the unspoken secrets.
So you've got two people who've been convicted of murder. The ultimate sentence, they've had all their appeals. The appellate courts have not found any reason to send it back. So this is new evidence, which does kind of open the door a little bit at this point. And you're saying re-sentence these two.
Yes, that they should be sentenced for manslaughter, which if they had those charges, they would have been out 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
They've been in 34 years. 34 years.
34 years. Wow.
Yes, they were abused the first 20 years of their life in horrific ways, and they've been imprisoned for the next 34 years of their life. These men at 55 and 53 have never known freedom. They have never had a day of violence before that night, nor the 34 years following. Neither of them. And Lyle is one of the most respected inmates there in San Diego and in all of the California system, truthfully. He's gotten his college degrees. He started organizations for sexually abused inmates. He started the beautification project of the prison system based on the Norwegian system that he studied. He's a brilliant, kind, and loving man, and he knows what happened to him. And I think for victims all over the world, freeing the Menendez brothers would free them as well, emotionally and spiritually.
Wow.
So I guess the question is,
I'm going to stop right there and continue this at a later date. I'm 3 hours into this live stream. Please take the polls on my community page. I will put up another question or two pertaining to the Menendez brothers. Most of the questions I've already asked. Do you believe that they were offended by the father? If the mother knew? Do you believe the allegation of one of the Menudo singing members? The fact that these boys have told, at the time when they were boys, that they told other relatives. I don't know. Rosie says there was no proof that they murdered their parents for financial gain. 51 witnesses. First trial, hung jury. Second trial, judge would not allow the essay to be brought up as a defense, which I find it very strange. He wrote a letter to, Eric wrote a letter to a family member 8 months prior to the murders of the parents. Lau tells him on the witness stand that he is responsible for the murders of his parents. But I guess obviously he said it was self-defense. What is the truth? Should these young men be, older men now, middle-aged men, be resentenced? 34 years, that's basically what? 17 per person, per death. Is that just? I guess it depends on your perception on the motive for the murder and what you believe. And that's the whole point of why I always say perception is key, because what I see, you don't see, and what I hear, you don't hear. So some people may see these as just two demon seeds, spoiled brats, but I just can't see boy children making that up. Now, as Vinny says, they could have made this up as a defense to try to get off of murdering their parents because it was financial. They just wanted to be rid of the parents and get their wealth. But is there some truth to the allegations, though? Because now you're talking about different people bringing up the story, of sexual abuse at different times. And these boys are like 3 years apart. So that would have been like separate incidents of where one child's telling relatives that he was touched. That would have been loud. It stopped at 8. Somebody had to say something for it to stop for the father to stop, and then he starts in on the younger kid. So my thing is, so one spoke up. What makes you think the second one wouldn't? Or is that why you chose him? Because he was timid. But if you're a sadist, you're a sadist. You don't really care which child you're offending. A child's a child. You're sick. And obviously, if he was so scared, Mr. Menendez, he didn't stop. He went on to the second child. I would have believed the allegations from Lyle and Eric. And then you have to ask yourself, why would these other people want to join in to the lie? And what did they witness? Because now we're hearing that there are other people who allegedly have evidence that this man was a sadist. So did the father touch other relatives? Was this a family secret? Not just in the Menendez household, but the family in general, his own sister's siblings. Because you have to remember, a sadist usually comes from a sadist or was touched and violated as a child. So if indeed the allegations are true about Mr. Menendez, was he violated as a child, boy, child? If so, who violated him? And we see a lot of these pedos hiding behind being married, relationships, whether they choose to violate girls or boys. So then that means if he violated his boys, then he was indeed a homosexual, Mr. Menendez. So then we have to go ask that question. If it's true, was he out here sleeping with men, bedding men, raping men? See, it goes way deeper than just being murdered by your own damn kids under the guise that you were violating them. Was he violating others? How long had it been going on? He was violating his own kids and others. 5 to 18 or 19, that's a long time. 13 years of being touched by your father, penetrated. This is crazy to me. I can't visualize it because you're not supposed to. That's why I said I can't see a boy child not speaking up at some point. Hey, stop. This is wrong. I don't want to do this anymore. I'll tell. Woo, woo. And to some degree, it makes me almost want to believe that it's true just because allegedly people verify Lyle was the issue. Didn't want Lyle to know. Because if it's true that he stopped touching that boy at 8, maybe he would be afraid of retribution from his eldest son. Try to fight him, beat him up. I don't know. He was athletic. Played tennis. He's also the one that wore the hairpiece that many people were stunned to know that he didn't have hair on top. That was very interesting information. Young man thinning hair early. Very wicked story. This is why I say when you see something, say something. This is definitely not the type of information you want to push under the rug. Like I said, many people are raised in strict households and everybody's not going to agree on how to rear children. But touching children, that's out. There should never be aiding and abetting anybody that violates a child. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, it's all the same. And if you allow it and you know that a child's being abused, there's something wrong with you. And that's where these other relatives, I have a problem with them that are adults, that you had gotten information that these children were violated and none of you went to the police. You just thought, oh, I'll say something to him and he'll stop. That makes no sense to me. Because if it's true, he didn't. I want to thank you for your time. This was a very winded live stream pertaining to the Menendez brothers, Keefe D. and Brooks Houck. Both have attended court. Kenneka Jenkins' mother has settled a lawsuit with the hotel outside of Chicago pertaining to the death of her daughter. I've brought you various news updates pertaining to local stories here in Knoxville that I have discussed on this network. And I brought you information pertaining to Tupac, theories of his murder, Suge Knight's commentary pertaining to he wants to get out of prison. Mr. Rhea, who murdered Dashina Kyle, he's been given an extra 37 years onto his life sentence for her murder. Three victims murdered here in Knoxville. I think I mixed that up. the 3 victims that were murdered, the 3 females, their killer got an extra 37 years. And the male who murdered Kenneka Kyle has gotten more years added on to his sentence as well. Tupac's brother has spoken out to his theories pertaining to Puff Diddy's involvement and things that Mr. Keefe D has mentioned in the past. Micah Orr, the guy who wrote the book, The Blind Side, believes that he has some type of CTE disorder. He's not the same person as he was, which makes no sense because he's a grown man now. Charlotte Senna, her abductor, is in jail, and her aunt has started a GoFundMe that I don't quite agree with. And I brought you that said information. And a young lady who was found missing by the name of Benita down in Memphis, she was found on railroad tracks. And I guess police are alluding that it was a suicide. And Dick Buckus, as many of you know him, the coach for the Bears, has died at the age of 80. Suzanne Morphew remains have been recovered. Brooks Houck, the boyfriend of Christina Rogers, currently in jail with a co-conspirator. Brought you information pertaining to that case. A lot of updates in 3 hours. Please take the post on my community page. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Mind the children. We've got to stop worrying about the snitch rule and being deemed a snitch. When it comes to children, there is no snitch rule. And if you think like that, that means there's something wrong with you. And you definitely don't even need to be a part of the living earth or have children, because children should be a top priority. And I know a lot of people don't like getting involved in other people's affairs and business. This is the reason why a lot of crime continues, because people don't want to get involved. People continue to aid criminals. And you see a lot of that in a lot of these true crime stories, that people have been aided by their friends, family members, and it needs to stop. Because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And you can't talk about what this person didn't do. As someone said, what was your role? What role did you play? Because you don't ever know when you may be on the receiving end of a violent scenario, and you would want aid to be rendered to you. And the shoe shouldn't have to go on the other foot for you to understand or comprehend that. Once again, if you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live. Thank you all for joining me. This winded live. I will try not to go this long again, but I had so many updates and I was a week behind on some of the commentary. I'm praying to get an update pertaining to Tamia Taylor, whose remains were identified in the Mississippi River a week or so ago. And any other information, I would like to gladly bring it to you as I get it. I'm trying not to deal in any type of rumors or rhetoric, because this is a serious situation and I do not know how this young lady got in the water, but it doesn't sound good either way. And I don't think she jumped in there in the water. You all have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. Be aware of your surroundings while you're out shopping and enjoying your free time. There's a lot of evil in the world, and there are people who are just out watching, looking, lurking, waiting for that opportunity to catch you slipping. So you need to please be aware of your surroundings, your home. Keep your home safe, cars locked. Don't leave things out on the seat. Holiday season is coming up. Don't leave anything out in the back hatch, the trunk, or on the seats, because what you don't think is valuable may be valuable to somebody else, and it is not worth your car being vandalized or your life. Same for your packages, parcels, Make sure there's somebody at home to pick up your things or have your things sent to an address where people tend to be at home more. Because this is the season for pirates, theft pirates, and people watching you shop, going in and out of stores. Just be aware of your surroundings. I recommend crossover bags for ladies when you're going to be out running errands and doing a lot of shopping, whether it's the holiday season or not. You don't really need a big old purse to carry around from store to store. Carry a crossover bag. Lighter on the body and better for safety. Thank you all so much for joining me. You have been listening to The Vault XL.